All right, everyone. The time has arrived. It's time for us to go ahead and start this deep dive of Borderlands as a series. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here. Welcome to my history of Borderlands, where we're going to dive into the history of each Borderlands game and also go through its development history and even talk about my own personal experiences about the series as a whole. Let's go and get started. So, the first Borderlands is the first Borderlands I interacted with. This was back during my days on the PlayStation. No, on the Xbox 360. Back, and I got Borderlands I got a used copy of Borderlands from a GameStop many years ago. And I found it quite unique in its gameplay and everything because here's the thing. I would go into GameStop repeatedly over and over and over again, and I would see Borderlands, and it would constantly catch my eye. Yet I never thought, I wonder what this game is like. So I got it on a whim, just thinking, this could be fun, this could be cool. And pretty much the rest is history, and I've been a massive fan of the game ever since. Basically being the first, well, now I'm not going to say that the Borderlands series as a whole is the first looter shooter to ever exist, because Hellgate London exists. However, the Borderlands series has essentially, the first Borderlands was the one that started the entire looter shooter, pioneered the whole looter shooter genre. Now, mind you, there have been games that had loot in it, but no looter shooters. So Borderlands is the granddaddy of looter shooter games that has essentially propelled the term looter shooter that you see in so many different games. Destiny, The Division. If it's a game where you're shooting and the game drops guns for you and loot and all sorts of different things, it's because of Borderlands. It's because of Borderlands. Not because, oh, we thought that this would be cool. No, it's essentially the same way you see a whole bunch of open world gacha games, where they essentially allow you to run out there in the open, but you got stamina limitations. All of that is because of Breath of the Wild. Whereas you see all these games, both single player and even live service games from Destiny and the like, and they give you all this different type of loot that you can get for your weapons and gear that you can wear. That's all thanks to Borderlands, because Bungie did not have the idea in mind for loot. Ubisoft didn't have the idea in mind for loot. We wouldn't have a lot of games out there that do things in a rarity-based type gear system if it wasn't for, and then you're shooting as well, if it wasn't for Borderlands. So let's look through the history of the first Borderlands. Then we'll move on to what we see as pretty much the epitome of the series with number 2. But there is something about that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about it, despite how much I loved Borderlands 2. Then we'll talk about the prequel, and then we'll talk about Borderlands 3. And I probably won't be talking too much about Borderlands 4, except for how excited I am to cover it. But let's go ahead and get started. Borderlands is a 2009. Can you believe that this is a game that predated the 2010s and has still managed to be relevant even after all these years? You know, Randy Pitchford aside, his randomness on the internet aside, the series has managed to last and persevere despite how tired many people can get of a singular type of genre for video games. It has managed to last this long. Borderlands is a 2009 action role-playing first-person shooter video game developed by Gearbox Software and published by 2K. It is the first game in the Borderlands series. The game was released worldwide in October 2009 for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Microsoft Windows, with the Max OS X version being released in December 3rd, 2010 by Feral Interactive. The game's story focuses on a group of 4 vault hunters who travel to the distant planet of Pandora to search for the Vault, which is rumored to contain advanced alien technology. Yo, Mihai! And Anime Gamer, you was a little kid in 2009? I was How old was I? 92, 2002. I think I was, because I was born in 92. 2002 would be 10 years. So I think I was around 16, maybe 17 when I played Borderlands originally. I want to say that I was around 17 around that time. Contain advanced alien technology and other priceless riches. The hunters piece together clues to find the vault while battling the savage wildlife of Pandora, local bandits that populate the planet, and ultimately banding together to prevent the Atlas Corporation and its privately funded paramilitary forces from reaching the vault first. The game features the ability to explore the in-game world and complete both main missions and optional side quests, either in single-player or online cooperative gameplay, with the latter providing additional options for duels and competitive PvP matches in designated areas. Gameplay features include access to various weapons and shields that vary in type and statistics, weapons with special elemental functions, each playable character having distinct class types and unique abilities for combat, upgradable skills, and the use of two-person vehicles. The game itself is rendered in cartoon-style graphics to provide greater detail on weapons and environments, and was inspired by action role-playing games of the time such as Ultima and Diablo. Borderlands has always been the series that people would see synonymous as being Diablo with guns. That's how Borderlands has always been. Borderlands sold over 2 million units by the end of 2009. It is considered to be one of the greatest video games ever made. Its success spawned 4 DLCs, The Zombie Island of Dr. Ned in November 2000, I want to say 2009, but it's 2009. Mad Moxie's Underdome Riot in December 2009. The Secret Armory of General Knox in February of 2010, and Claptrap's New Robot Revolution in September of 2010, and 4 follow-ups: Borderlands 2 in September 2012, Borderlands the presequel in 2014, and Borderlands 3 in 2019. And the upcoming Borderlands 4 in September 2025. Wait. Almost. Hold on. Okay, so it's been several. Okay, so the next Borderlands we get is also releasing in September. The last time we got a Borderlands, which was Borderlands 3, also dropped in September as well. A remastered version titled Borderlands Game of the Year Enhanced for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, that's the one I got, and Xbox One was released on April 3rd, 2019, which features graphical enhancements and gameplay improvements backported from Borderlands 2. The remastered version was released for the Nintendo Switch alongside Borderlands 2 and Borderlands the prequel as part of the Borderlands Legacy Collection in May 2020. So, of course, we have the standard gameplay of Borderlands, so we'll go through it so you guys can understand how it continues to do that same thing, but also starts to upgrade stuff as the numbered series goes up. I'm not really going to include Wonderlands because I really just want to focus on the specific Borderlands entries, the numbered ones, 1, 2, 3, prequel, and then at some point later in the future, I will be covering Borderlands 4 as history as well, but also covering everything that has to do with it too. This week is going to be fun. Borderlands includes character building elements found in role-playing games, leading the developer Gearbox Software to call the game a role-playing shooter. At the start of the game, players select one of 4 characters, each with a unique special skill and with proficiencies with certain weapons. Now, this was something that in the first game was very prominent. You would get something a little bit more with later games, but then they started to move away from weapon-specific skills so that it doesn't alienate you from having the benefits of skills that don't have anything to do with you using a certain weapon. From then on, players take on missions assigned through non-player characters, NPCs, or from bounty boards, each typically rewarding the player with experience points, money, and sometimes a reward item. Players earn experience by killing both human and non-human foes and completing in-game challenges. such as getting a certain number of kills using a specific type of weapon. As they gain levels from experience growth, players can then allocate skill points into a skill tree, my favorite thing of video games, that features 3 distinct specializations of the base character. For example, Mordecai can become specialized in sniping, gunslinging with revolvers, or using his pet Bloodwing to assist in kills and health boosting. Lilith is a specialist when it comes to elemental damage and also remaining in her phase walk for extended periods of time. Roland is what I would describe as a character best utilized with a group, because while he can hold his own on his own, a lot of his skills really do encourage playing with other people in order to play with Roland. And he has some skills, a lot of skills that are good for, regaining ammo and also health as well. But, play through 2.5, you can see that there's a lot of enemies that will out damage the amount that you regen. So he's all right. Personally, from my experience, he was the longest that took me to level up to max because it just felt so incredibly slow to level him. And then you have Brick, who is basically the berserker, the bruiser, who can just throw down his guns and just start punching people all over the place, which is what I kind of wanted to see with Amara back in Borderlands 3, but we never really got to that extent. But he's also good with explosive damage, using heavy weapons, and just all around, remaining the tank of the group. Players can distribute points among any of the specializations and can spend an amount of in-game money to redistribute their skill points. Respec. Players start the game with the ability to equip 2 weapons and later gain up to 4 weapon slots, as well as slots for an energy shield, a grenade modification, and a class modification. Items collected can be sold back at vendors for money that can then be used to buy better items. It's really covering pretty much all the basis of what Borderlands is. It gets simplified as we move into the other series. Items are sold back at vendors for money that can be used to buy better items. One of the key features of Borderlands is the randomly generated weapons and items created either as dropped by enemies, found in storage chests about the game, on the ground, sold at vendors in the game, or as quest reward items. The game uses a procedural content creation system to create these weapons and items, which can alter their firepower, rate of fire, and accuracy, add in elemental effects such as a chance to set foes on fire or cover them in burning acid, and at times other special bonuses such as regenerating the player's ammo. Not the Anaconda. The Equalizer. It's a pistol. I believe it's a pistol, or I believe it's a revolver, that has regenerating ammo. And you don't really see too much of those automatic ammo regenerating guns come back as often, but they do have certain games later on would have the ability to regen health, whether you kill an enemy or maybe even hit a crit spot on the enemy, they get ammo back that way. But it wasn't something that was just as prevalent as it was back then. A color-coded scale is used to indicate the rarity of the item, the weapon or item, such as common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and in the case of Borderlands 1 and 2, it skips 3, pearlescent weapons. You get different types of weapons in Borderlands 2 that introduce new stuff, but pearlescent weapons were the most rarest of pieces of gear that you could ever get your hands on. It was also among some of the most powerful, where you had a very, even beneath the drop rate for legendaries, they were the absolute rarest things to get your hands on. So if you got your hands on a pearlescent weapon, never let it go, regardless of if it was lower leveled or under leveled. It's just they were that rare to get your hands on. Let's see. According to Gearbox developers, the random system could generate around 16 to 17 million variations of weapons. And this is Borderlands 1. That number increased with every Borderlands game. We are now at Borderlands 4, where it's been said that we can get 30 billion different types of guns. 30 billion! We went from 1 million randomly generated variations to 30 billion random generated variations. The procedural system is also used to create the characteristic of random enemies that the player may face. This allows for enemies of the same species to have widely varying attacks. For example, variations of spider ants in the game could leap around and would jump onto players' faces, while another variant can roll into a ball and attack people, depending on the context generator. And the same exact type of enemy would never spawn all the time unless they had a specific set spawn. For example, when you go into the Rust Commons and you're leaving Tannis's place and you go across the bridge, there is always going to be this big, giant, elite, one-armed psycho that comes out of that area. Always. But any place else, and when enemies show up, it can be random what type of psychos and bandits you would come across all the time. Sometimes they would incorporate multiple heavies. Sometimes they would incorporate the giant hulking heavies with the face masks and the glowing eyes. It could be any sort of combination. And when I was playing Roland, I would be on the weird receiving end of a lot of these enemies, a lot of the time. When in combat, the player can take damage if their shield is depleted, affecting their health. If they lose all their health, they must either wait to be revived by another player or attempt to kill an enemy to achieve a second win, or otherwise will be regenerated back at the last New You station that they pass, losing a ratio-appropriate percentage of their money in the process. Players quickly gain access to two passenger vehicles and can engage in vehicular combat with other enemies. Eventually, a system of fast transit points between the game world is available to the player. Until then, players must walk or drive between areas to get around. And I am so glad that we have reached, all these years, we have finally reached a point where we don't need to worry about walking every single long expanse anymore. We ain't got to worry about that. And that pretty much stopped. Started to stop with Borderlands 3, where we could just teleport to our vehicle wherever we are. But in Borderlands 4, but also in Borderlands 3, there was still the limitation of having to go to a station to get your vehicle. Borderlands 4 is doing away with that whole concept completely, and now we can call our vehicle to us wherever we are out in the open. Highly doubt we're going to be able to do that in the building because that would make no sense, but out in the open, we can call it wherever we are. We no longer need to go to a catch-a-ride in order to get one. Now, obviously, there's no catch-a-rides on Kairos because Kairos has been hidden from the world for who knows how long, and I'm pretty sure Scooter's influence has not reached a planet that has been basically hidden from the rest of the galaxy. So, yeah, but I'm also happy about that. Oh, sorry, my sincerest apologies, Anime Gamer. I had almost forgotten exactly who you were because I saw your name and I was thinking, oh, that name seems familiar. And then Hybrid's talking, and I was like, oh, that's who it is! My apologies, my sincerest apologies. The game can be played alone, but also supports two-player cooperative play through split screen on consoles and up to 4 players playing cooperatively online or over LAN. The game follows the progress of the host player, rewarding the other active players for completion of quests for their characters. If the other players are doing the same quest in their campaign, the completed quests remain the same in their campaign, as well as the hosts. When more players are present, the game alters the statistics of the generated enemies, balancing the game due to the larger number of players. Players can take part in one-on-one duels anywhere on the game world, or can visit arenas in the game world to participate in free-for-all, 2-on-2, or 3-on-1 combat battles with their fellow players. The original title, as shipped for Windows, used GameSpy servers for multiplayer modes. As a result of GameSpy's shutdown in 2013, 2K Games patched the game and removed the service to Steam, as well as providing Steam activations of the game for those that purchase the title through retail chains. And of course, we have the synopsis with everything, and it's not terribly long, because the story of the first Borderlands game wasn't exactly deep. It wasn't exactly deep. You did stuff going from one place to the next, but it did not have the story beats that we would later get in Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 and the prequel, it didn't have that trademark story flow that we would grow to be used to. So I can just go over actually, you know what? Let's see. There's a plot, development, and might as well go through it so that way everyone can know what's going on. Borderlands is set in the distant future at a time where various megacorporations seek control of planets to colonize and mine for their mineral wealth and resources. Prior to the events of the game, the Atlas Corporation, one of the major megacorporations, uncovered an ancient alien vault filled with advanced weapons technology left behind by an ancient alien race known as the Iridians, which allowed them to rapidly overtake their competitors. Finding similar ruins of the same alien architecture on the planet Pandora, Atlas sought to settle the planet in hopes of finding more alien technology, but were forced to abandon their plans due to a failure to find any alien technology on the surface, and being unprepared for the dangerous wildlife coming out during their stay. After their departure, the Dahl Corporation, another mega corporation, colonized the planet to secure its vast deposits of minerals, using large amounts of convict labor for the mining operations while initiating their own search for a vault. Their research team's efforts to find the vault were headed up by Patricia Tanis, a respected xenoarchaeologist. Despite losing all of her colleagues to the planet's wildlife and being driven partially insane herself, Tanis found proof that a vault does exist on Pandora. Yo, what's going on, Courier? What's good, Borderlands, huh? It's almost time for release. Yes, it is! It's almost. And being driven partially insane herself, Tanis found proof that a vault does exist on Pandora. Her news was intercepted by Atlas, who sent its private military force, the Crimson Lance, to kidnap Tanis and get the vault's location from her. Faced with their invasion, Dahl abandoned the planet, taking only the wealthy colonists with them and leaving the remaining population to scavenge for a living amongst the barren wastelands and industrial trash heaps across the planet. To make matters worse, the convict labor was allowed to go free, leading them to form clans of bandits that terrorized the local populace. Despite the circumstances, the vault and its rewards transformed into a legend that attracts mercenary vault hunters to the planet. So now we go into the characters. There are 4 playable characters featured in the game for players to choose from. Brick, a large, powerful man who operates as a berserker. Lilith, a woman with powerful alien abilities operating as a siren, and sirens are legendary figures that exist throughout the galaxy. Only a certain number of them can exist at a time, and they're pretty much the most powerful women that exist in the universe. Mordecai, a skilled marksman with an avian companion named Bloodwing, operating as a hunter, and the very first character that I played in Borderlands originally. And Roland, a former member of the Crimson Lance, operating as a soldier. After all this time, I can say that I kind of don't want to play Roland anymore if I ever play Borderlands, if I ever do a new character for Borderlands, but I probably won't. Each character's class defines the style of weaponry they specialize in, along with the unique skill they can use. Brick can enter a rage state for increased melee strength and a short period of health regeneration. Lilith can turn invisible to enemies, moving much faster in this state, and capable of shock blasts when entering and exiting this state. Mordecai can call his companion to attack enemies in his crosshairs, and Roland can utilize an automated turret to take on enemies and provide additional cover. Plot! Borderlands begins sometime after the Dahl Corporation's abandonment of the planet Pandora. 4 vault hunters, Brick, Lilith, Mordecai, and Roland, arrive in search of the fabled vault. After arriving to the town of Firestone, the vault hunters begin to receive psychic instructions from a mysterious woman known as the Guardian Angel. The vault hunters meet a CL4TP or claptrap robot and a doctor named Zed who helped them establish a reputation by killing several bandit leaders, eventually leading to the collection of an alien artifact, being the first piece of a key needed to open the vault. This causes Patricia Tanis, Dahl's former xenoarchaeologist still in residence on the planet, to contact the Vault Hunters, revealing that the vault can only be accessed once every 200 years, and that the time of the next opening is approaching. Let's see. It releases Friday, September 12th at midnight here. Same for you? Yes, but I'm getting my copy physical because I am an advocate for physical media. So while it'll release digitally for at 12 midnight for pretty much everyone, I'm going to get mine's physical in the store. I got like the super deluxe edition, so I will be picking my copy up once the store I got it from opens. So, yes. But for people at midnight, it'll definitely be releasing for you then. Let's see. Revealing that this vault can only be accessed once every 200 years and that the time of the next opening is approaching. Tannis also explains that 3 more artifacts are needed to complete the vault key. Meanwhile, Commandant Steele of the Crimson Lance, a well-outfitted military force led by the Atlas Corporation, threatens to declare martial law and demands the vault key pieces. The Vault Hunters secure the second and third pieces by following Tannis' instructions, but the final piece, supposedly in the possession of a bandit lord named Baron Flint, turns out not to be where it was expected. Steele contacts the Vault Hunters to reveal there are in fact only 3 pieces and that Tannis has betrayed and misled them. Steele then disables the planet's EchoNet, preventing further communication with the Guardian Angel and anyone else. Oh, got the fancy one. Yes, I did. I had to. Last one I got was the deluxe edition for Borderlands 3, but this time I wanted to go all out and get the best version. Not the collector's edition, because that doesn't even come with the game for some reason. So I just got the super deluxe one. Let's see, the Vault Hunter Steele then disables the planet's EchoNet, preventing further communication with the Guardian Angel and anyone else. The Vault Hunters infiltrate the Crimson Lance's headquarters and find Tannis imprisoned. She claims she was forced into betrayal and urges the Vault Hunters to restart the Echo Network, and stop Steele and the Crimson Lance before they reach the vault. After restoring the network, the Guardian Angel directs the Vault Hunters towards Steele's location. During the final approach to the Vault Hunters encounter Crimson Lance forces already locked in combat with the Vault's alien guardians. The Vault Hunters finally arrive at the vault only moments too late to stop Steele from using the key. When the vault opens, a giant monster emerges and wipes out Steele and the rest of her troops. To be specific, it doesn't just wipe out Steele. It literally eats Steele. It impales her. And then proceeds to eat her, and then kills the rest of the troops. The Guardian Angel explains that the monster is called the Destroyer and was imprisoned in the vault long ago by the Iridians, the alien race who left behind the ruins and created the vault in order to prevent the destruction of the universe. And the Guardians were posted to prevent anyone from opening it. Although the Vault Hunters killed the Destroyer, the vault is resealed for another 200 years. The Guardian Angel is revealed to be transmitting her signals through a Hyperion satellite in orbit high above Pandora. The game ends with the satellite sending a signal to a claptrap robot on the planet, changing it into an interplanetary ninja assassin, continued in the plot of the DLC Claptrap's New Robot Revolution. So now we have the really interesting part, the development of how Borderlands got started. Gearbox's Randy Pitchford said that the idea of Borderlands was inspired both being an avid role-playing game fan, including roguelites such as NetHack, and action role-playing games like Ultima and Diablo, and being drawn into first-person shooters that he worked on in his early career, including Duke Nukem 3D. He recognized that the core gameplay loops for both genres are at different timescales, whereas the core loop for a role-playing game is long in terms of leveling up characters. A shooter has a much shorter one in moving and shooting to clear out a new area. Pitchford felt these two loops were not mutually exclusive due to the different timescales and believes some type of fusion could be made from the two genres, thus forming the basis of Borderlands. Pitchford recognized this could be a risk, but went ahead anyway. In a 2017 interview, Pitchford recounted that industry analyst Michael Pachter had believed Borderlands was going to be a failure. as players that would want to play a role-playing game or a shooter would more than likely play a game dedicated to that genre instead of the hybrid. After the Borderlands series had sold more than 30 million copies, Pachter admitted to Pitchford that he had been wrong. Gearbox did not have the narrative defined at the onset of development for Borderlands, but needed to find some reason to have the players feel rewarded after killing enemies and collecting loot from them. So basically, they're saying that the plot for Borderlands wasn't really one that they had at the forefront when they were developing it. Killing enemies and collecting loot from them. As they developed the game further, they came to the idea of casting the player as a vault hunter so that looting equipment and other items would be kind of virtuous. This led to the Pandora narrative, since the act of opening a vault or box to obtain potentially disastrous results was compared to the mythological Pandora's box. The game's development started around 2005, initially pitched as Halo meets Diablo. The initial period involved Pitchford selling his team on the idea of the FPS RPG hybrid and eventually determining that the FPS genre would be the defining genre for the game. The game's art style was initially more realistic, with visual ideas inspired partially by the Gears of War and Mass Effect series. And if you check out pictures of like initial Borderlands, it had a very Mad Max realistic look to it before they started to settle on the cel shading look that they have now. The team expanded and prepared for releasing the game's first public reveal in September 2007 via Game Informer cover story, with trailers to be shown in the following year's E3 and other game conventions, building atop a modified Unreal Engine 3. Elements that were planned at the time of that cover story, but that did not make the final game, included procedurally generated loot caves and the ability to hire non-playable character mercenaries to help in combat. Further, the game initially had 3 Vault Hunters. Brick had not been included yet, as Gearbox thought that it would be interesting in the co-op to have 2 or more players playing the same characters, but with persistent improvements that the players had made to them. Internal teams, assigned to give Gearbox's projects a critical review, started cautioning the team that at this stage, as they felt Borderlands was beginning to look much closer to the then recent Fallout 3 or Rage games, the realistic was beginning to look more closer to the then recent Fallout 3 or Rage games. The realistic look, which gave much of the visuals a brown muted color palette, clashed with some of the more fantastical elements they had included at that point, such as extraordinary jump heights and the vehicle systems. By this point, the game was 75% complete, and there was a target release window they wanted to reach, so scrapping major elements of the game was not an option for the studio. According to the chief creative official Brian Martell, they opted to try to find their purple cow, some visual element that would make the game stand out and gain sales. Martell and a small team spent some time in secret to create a prototype of the game using an art style similar to cel shading, fearing that if they had said anything to the other team members, there may have been discontentment among the staff. Pitchford would later acknowledge that this new style was not wholly original to Gearbox and was partially inspired by Ben Hyben's short film Code Hunters. Hyben has stated that while he was contacted by Gearbox to possibly work on artwork for Borderlands, nothing ever came of the talks. The style itself appears as cel-shaded comic book artwork, but is rendered using a combination of hand-drawn textures with engine modifications to outline major features, creating the comic book appearance that we have today. When the new style was revealed to both Gearbox and 2K Games, nearly everyone was pleased with it. However, the game's original art director was so disappointed with having her work discarded that she left the company and the video game industry altogether. So that I did not know. The style was refined further with the help of a comic book artist. Most of the rest of the elements of the game, such as the type and variety of enemies, were kept as is. The skill trees, initially filled with more mundane abilities, were repopulated with applies inspired by magic systems from RPGs, such as healing bullets, embracing the more extreme aspects of the game. Other shortcuts were taken to complete the game in a timely manner, such as reusing systems from other Gearbox games, and adjusting the narrative and setting to simplify the end product, such as having Pandora's moon in a fixed location so they could create dramatic shadows for the various levels. Is this Wikipedia? Yeah, it is. It is, because it's pretty much the only place where we can get a whole bunch of information succinct in one row. The change did still delay their initially planned release in 2008 to 2009, with Gearbox showing off the new style by May of that year. And of course, we have the different marketing and release and downloadable content. It was just like a whole bunch of stuff. Remastered version as well. Minimap, additional character customization options, and 4-player split-screen multiplayer on consoles, and changes to the game's final boss fight as well. Increased frame rate, which was greatly appreciated. And the critical reception was, quite well. People really liked the first Borderlands as well. It sold well as well. By February, in late August 2009, Electronic Entertainment Design and Research Analyst Jesse Divnich said Borderlands could very well surprise the market and consumers as BioShock did in 2007. By 2009, I keep wanting to say 2009. By 2009, the game had sold over 2 million copies, according to Take-Two's Interactive's financial report. By 2010, the number had risen to 3 million. By 2011, the game had sold 4.5 million units worldwide. And then we move on to the sequel, Borderlands 2. Now, let me just say what I need to say about the first Borderlands. It was my first foray into the series, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You didn't want to get the info from the source? But here's the thing, though. There's no one-track place for all of this information for Borderlands. It's not like Gearbox doesn't have like a history of Borderlands 2 to this extent. And I know what people have to say about Wikipedia. Not everything on Wikipedia is credible. However, there's not many other places where this amount of information concerning the game comes from. That's the reason why I went to Wikipedia. Because while I could go to the wiki, it would pretty much have the same exact thing. Because specific Borderlands wikis weren't a thing until after Wikipedia and until people started making wiki pages for themselves. But this is where the most amount of sources for this game's history comes from. And if I want to get all this information in just one singular row, then I'll just use this. But we move on to Borderlands 2. Now, okay, so going back to it, Borderlands 1 and its DLCs were amazing to me. I enjoyed it. Now, mind you, my mindset for how this, I see now, I didn't know it wasn't all in one place. Oh, no, it's not. It's not. If I'm going to Wikipedia, it's simply because the places where I would normally go to, they either have it in pieces and not all in one place. That's the reason why. Apologies? You're fine. You're fine. Don't even worry about it. Forget about it. You're fine. But this is where I just go here because it has pretty much the vast majority of info that everyone knows. So that's the reason why I'm using this. But Borderlands 1 was incredible to me because it was the first time I've ever played a game of its kind. And I didn't have an affinity towards skill trees in video games until maybe 10, maybe almost 15 years later. I thought it was cool, but it wasn't something that I kind of look for in games that I do now, simply because I just love that whole concept, the aspect of games where I can level up a character and improve their skills and make them stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger over time. I became incredibly fond of that later on. But Borderlands was one of the first games that introduced that to me, among other games that I played back in the day as well, such as Ratchet & Clank, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and the like. So, but playing newer Borderlands and trying to go back to the first one makes it very apparent that we have progressed gameplay-wise, mechanic-wise, because there are things you can do in Borderlands 3 that I wish you could do in Borderlands 1. For example, in Borderlands 3, even though Borderlands 2 had it, you can move around when you go into your fight for your life state. When you're crippled on the ground and you have to kill an enemy in order to get back up, Borderlands 1 won't allow you to do any of that. You are stuck in place. So many of my most frustrating moments from Borderlands 1 was simply I could kill an enemy and I could get downed by a random stray bullet from an enemy I don't actively see. And then not only does the screen get darker and darker and darker and harder for you to see, but you also can't move to a position where you can kill an enemy to get back up again. You can do that in later games, but not in Borderlands 1. So that's something that that annoyed me greatly about the game as well. And also another thing was you could find yourself getting assaulted by enemies, and then you could be right next to the respawn point when you're fighting them. So if they kill you, you will literally respawn directly in front of them where they will gun you down again. I've had that happen several times to me. But at the same time, I still love playing it because of the pursuit of becoming stronger and getting better loot and trying to get your hands on legendaries or trying to get your hands on pearlescent weapons. Playing through all the DLCs, finding out glitches and stuff, and bugs and stuff, fun bugs and stuff, such as being able to go inside of the armory of General Knox without setting off the timer so you could loot the entire place and take all the legendaries for yourself. There was so much to enjoy about the first Borderlands. But everything changed for the greater when we got Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 is a 2012 action role-playing first-person shooter video game developed by Gearbox Software and published by 2K, taking place 5 years following the events of Borderlands. The game is again set on the planet of Pandora. The story follows a new group of Vault Hunters who must ally with the Crimson Raiders, a resistance group made up of civilian survivors and guerrilla fighters to defeat the tyrannical Handsome Jack before he can unlock the power of a new vault. The game features the ability to explore the in-game world and complete main missions and optional side quests, either in offline split-screen, single-player, or online cooperative gameplay. Like its predecessor, the game features a procedurally generated loot system which is capable of generating numerous combinations of weapons and other gear, and it also featured some of the greatest pieces of gear in Borderlands history. With the unexpected success of the first game, Gearbox was able to secure a budget of $30 to $35 million to develop the sequel. Like its predecessor, the game adopted the concept art style, which features graphics inspired by both photorealistic imagery and comic book-inspired visuals. You also know the cycle? Yeah. The team attempted to address players' feedback from the first game and recruited Anthony Birch, who wrote the game's script, which is 7 times longer than that of the original game. Among the game's diverse cast of characters, Handsome Jack, the central antagonist, was created to be a charismatic, jerk that mirrors Birch's own personality. And of course, it was released on all different systems, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, a port for Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One as part of the Borderlands Handsome Collection, which I also have, a virtual reality version, which I also have for my VR, and Windows for Windows and PlayStation in 2018 and October 2020. The game received universal acclaim upon release. Critics generally praised the game's visuals, writing, gameplay, and online multiplayer, as well as its variety of guns, while criticizing its mission design and content filters. The handheld and the virtual reality versions of the game were regarded to be inferior to the console and PC versions. More than 20 million units were shipped upon release, and the game became 2K's most successful release. It was nominated for multiple year-end awards by several gaming publications. Gearbox supported the game with 4 add-on campaigns, including one add-on campaign that is considered one of the best DLCs to ever exist. New characters and 5 content packs. The game was followed by Borderlands the presequel in 2014 and Borderlands 3 in 2019. Since its release, it has been cited by some as one of the greatest video games ever made. Similar to its predecessor, Borderlands 2 is a first-person shooter with elements drawn from role-playing video games. 4 playable character classes are available in the base game, each with their own unique action skill. Axton, the commando, can summon a turret to provide offensive support, which can also be upgraded so it can teleport where you throw it, and you can also have 2 out at once, and it can also explode in a nuclear explosion, and also shoot out rockets as well. Maya, the siren, can phase lock enemies by trapping them in a sphere of energy for a few seconds. She's pretty much the elemental expert of the group, just like Lilith was. She can essentially not only lock an enemy in place, but she can also essentially assault them with tons and tons and tons of elements all at once, and even cause a singularity that will draw on numerous other enemies that can also be assaulted by all these elements, and they all stack on top of each other. Shock, fire, corrosive, slag, all sorts of different effects on top of each other where you will literally melt people. Or you can make it so that you can raise a person if they're in fight for your life from a distance. Or you can make it so that phase lock can lock onto another character, lock onto another enemy as soon as the one inside of its first lock is killed. And it can just zip between more of them over and over again. Zero, the assassin, the character I played first on Borderlands 2, can temporarily become invisible and spawn a hologram decoy to distract enemies, which also enables him to do insane amounts of critical damage while he's in this state. One of his skills, called Bore, is so powerful that it's capable of almost pretty much one-shotting one of the bosses in the game, simply because, since that skill wasn't scaled properly, it makes it for a constant ricochet inside of the boss that could render that more often than not tends to just straight up kill the boss in one shot. That's Zero. Salvador, the Gunzerker, can use his titular ability to temporarily dual-wield weapons. And this was our instance where we saw Salvador is an amazing character. Can dual-wield any weapon he has active. He'll dual-wield that same weapon, and you're just, especially if it's the Unkempt Herald, which is an explosive Tor pistol that shoots out several bullets all at once. And the fact that not only are you regenning your health while you're gunzerking, but you're also regenning your ammo at high speeds at the same time, you can find yourself just completely covering an entire area in bullets all the time. Action skills have a cooldown time during which the player must wait before they can use the skill again. Similarly to the original, completing the main story campaign unlocks True Vault Hunter mode, a new game plus which increases the difficulty of the game by making enemies stronger, improves the probability of finding rare and higher quality items, and allows the player's character to reach level 50. Weapons can be bought from vendors, picked up from fallen enemies, and found inside containers. The game features 6 weapon types: pistols, submachine guns, assault rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, and rocket launchers, with a procedurally generated loot system capable of generating numerous variations of these and other gear. You have no idea what farming is like when you're trying to get a 95% bullet reflect chance sham shield. The hours you will lose trying to get your hands on specifically that type of shield. The in-game manufacturers of the weapons provide them with distinct characteristics. Each weapon also has different stats and properties, such as producing different damage and having varying accuracy, fire rate, reload speed, and magazine size. A color-coded scale is used to indicate the rarity of the weapon or item. Some weapons are infused with additional elemental effects that deal extra damage to enemies. In addition, players can collect mods which would alter the stats of grenades and action skills, and relics, which are rare items that can change any gameplay aspect. Players need to manage their inventory regularly as they cannot equip all the weapons they have collected. The player is protected by a shield, which can automatically regenerate from damage. If the shield is destroyed, the player's health would start to deplete. Insta-health vials can be picked up to restore health. If they lose all their health, they enter a down state and must either wait to be revived by another player or attempt to kill an enemy to achieve a second win. Otherwise, they will be regenerated back at the last new use station that they pass. But the advantage with this is that in Borderlands 2, you can actually move around to get yourself to a better position to kill an enemy. Maybe even move into a position that encourages the enemy to get closer to you, so you have a better chance of killing said enemy. This wasn't present in Borderlands 1, and it was by far the one downside to it, because so much frustration could have been avoided if they allowed you to move while you were already in fight for your life. But I'm glad Borderlands 2 introduced that, because now it's become the standard that we absolutely cannot do without now. We cannot do without it. As the player completes missions and kills enemies, they gain corresponding rewards such as experience points and new weapons. Once they gain enough XP, they level up, which unlocks new skill points to upgrade abilities. Each Vault Hunter can progress in 3 different skill trees after unlocking the basic class-specific action skill. And action skills became a lot more varied, a lot more effective, and a lot more powerful in comparison to Borderlands 1. In Borderlands 1, the skills were very, very straightforward. They were very straightforward. Matter of fact, I should have a picture. Hold on. Let's do this. Let's do this. I can pull up a picture because I took pictures of the skill trees. So let me do this. I specifically took pictures just in case I did something like this. Borderlands skill trees. All right, cool. And I specifically took pictures of all the skill trees of characters in Borderlands as a whole. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring this image over here and make it match the size of the actual browser window, or at least try to. Yeah, it's not the same length. All right, so as you can see here, this is the skill tree of what characters look like in Borderlands 1. Very straightforward and not overly, I won't say complicated, but not overly varied in terms of its additional functions and what have you. They're very straightforward. They're either just increases to your weapon damage or maybe even certain changes to your action skill, but they weren't as varied as they would later be in Borderlands 2, because this is what they look like in Borderlands 2. In Borderlands 2, you gain a lot more features. Like, for example, certain things would just, your action skill would just straight up change. So for Maya, you can see a little hummingbird right there. I believe that's a skill that increases the cooldown for her phase lock. Because mind you, this is Maya. She's not max level. Max level is 80 in Borderlands 2. And only, I think, either Krieg or Zero are, no, Krieg is the only character that I have at level 80 in Borderlands 2. I haven't gotten everyone else to that level quite yet. But there's numerous skills here that basically change up the entire functionality of your action skill. Whereas in Borderlands 1, you could only change its element and maybe have an additional effect happening along with it. In Borderlands 2, sometimes it would just straight up change the effects that you were doing. So on the bottom of her Cataclysm tree right there, it would cause different effects to happen at the exact same time the action skill was happening. And it would also have her have this like fiery aura around her as well. And then if you move to her Harmony tree, you see that that's one where if I had gone all the way down to the bottom, I can make it so that I could raise and I could gain the ability to instantly revive a character another player who's away from me. And over to her Motion tree, the one that's underneath the hummingbird, I forget its exact name, but that's the skill I was mentioning, saying that her phase lock can go from one character to another, to another, to another, and the one below that can make it so that if I were to phase lock an enemy, I could confuse them and have them be a temporary ally. So in Borderlands 2, skills kind of varied up a little bit when they did that. So back to this. Each Vault Hunter can progress in 3 different skill trees after unlocking the basic class-specific action skill. In addition, leveling up increases the maximum health capacity and unlocks new weapons, some of which cannot be used until the player reaches a certain level. As the player explores and completes missions, gotta run, 7 p.m., and And you get, gotta work at midnight, catch the rest later. Courier, it's an honor of you being here. You go ahead and you take care of what you need to take care of. As the player explores and completes missions, new areas of the game world are unlocked. The game has a semi-open world structure, as the world is divided into several sections which can be freely explored. In each area, different non-playable characters are encountered who provide side missions for the players. Players can spawn vehicles in order to quickly traverse some areas. The in-game currency can be collected from loot drops, loot containers, completing missions, and selling unwanted equipment, and can be used to purchase items from vending machines. Players can also gather Iridium bars, a new currency for purchasing storage upgrades and other premium items. A major addition to the game is the Bad A rank. I don't use profanity, so I will not say it. Is the Bad A rank system. Completing various in-game challenges awards points, which convert into tokens that can be redeemed to increase the base stats of the player's characters, which is substantial when you get them all the way into like over 100 or maybe 104%. The increase in power is substantial than if you turn them off. If you turn them off, you can see that those increases really boost your power over time. When exploring the world, players can access certain new use stations in order to fast travel, and quick change machines allow players to customize their avatar's look, clothing, and name. The game supports cooperative multiplayer, though the PlayStation Vita version only supports 2 players. As more players join a session, the game's difficulty increases along with the loot rewards. Players can trade items in cash or can duel for the agreed upon stakes. The game also features split-screen multiplayer. And now we get to the settings and character. And mind you, the synopsis is a little bit longer. 5 years have passed since the events of Borderlands, where 4 Vault Hunters, Roland, Mordecai, Lilith, and Brick, were guided by a mysterious entity known as the Guardian Angel to the Vault, an ancient alien structure that was rumored to hold exotic technology and riches. On entering the Vault, they were instead confronted by an alien abomination known as the Destroyer. After defeating the Destroyer, a valuable mineral called Iridium started flourishing through Pandora's crust. Handsome Jack, voiced by Damian Clark, and he does a phenomenal job as Jack, CEO of the Hyperion Corporation, secures this new resource and makes use of it to attempt to bring peace to the planet. Now, CEO of the Hyperion Corporation secures this new resource and makes use of it to attempt to bring peace to the planet. Now, Handsome Jack rules over the inhabitants of Pandora with an iron fist from his massive space station, Helios. Meanwhile, rumors spread of an even larger vault, drawing a new group of vault hunters who search for it. Like its predecessor, Borderlands 2 features 4 playable characters: Axton the Commando, Maya the Siren, Salvador the Gunzerker, and Zero the Assassin. 2 additional characters are available as downloadable content: Gage the Necromancer and Krieg the Psycho. The 4 player characters from the first game, Roland, Lilith, Brick, and Mordecai, return in the form of non-playable characters. Other NPCs originating from the first game and its DLCs include the Guardian Angel, Claptrap, Scooter the Mechanic, Dr. Zed, Marcus the Arms Merchant, Mad Moxie, Crazy Earl, and the insane archaeologist Patricia Tanis. New NPCs include the cyborg hunter Sir Hammerlock, Scooter's sister Ellie, and the explosive-obsessed girl Tiny Tina, who would become one of the most iconic characters in video game history. Plot! The game opens with the Vault Hunters aboard a Hyperion train on Pandora. Their employer, Handsome Jack, suddenly sabotages the train and leaves the Vault Hunters for dead in a frozen wasteland. The Vault Hunters are found by the last remaining Claptrap unit. The Guardian Angel contacts the Vault Hunters and instructs them to accompany Claptrap to the city of Sanctuary and to join the Crimson Raiders, an anti-Hyperion resistance movement, in order to defeat Handsome Jack. Upon arriving at Sanctuary, the Vault Hunters are asked to rescue Roland, leader of the Crimson Raiders, who has been captured by a bounty hunter called the Firehawk. The Vault Hunters meet the Firehawk, who turns out to be Lilith, whose siren powers have been enhanced by the new supply of iridium. Lilith informs the Vault Hunters that Roland was actually captured by a group of bandits. After fighting through the bandits' territory, the Vault Hunters rescue Roland and return to Sanctuary. Roland and Lilith learn that the Vault Key stolen from Tanis by Handsome Jack is being transported aboard a Hyperion train and ask the Vault Hunters to retrieve it. The Vault Hunters derail the train, but instead of finding the Vault Key, they encounter Wilhelm, a Hyperion cyborg and one of Handsome Jack's enforcers. The Vault Hunters kill Wilhelm and recover his power core, which Roland recommends be used as the power source for Sanctuary's shields. The power core turns out to be a trap. It allows the Guardian Angel, who is revealed to be working for Jack, to lower the city's shields, leaving it vulnerable to an orbital bombardment. Lilith saves Sanctuary, which was originally a large spacecraft, by activating its engines and teleporting it away. Handsome Jack's plan is to open Pandora's second vault and unleash the Warrior, a powerful Iridian monster controlled by whoever releases it. As the Vault Key only charges itself every 200 years, he is using Iridium to forcefully charge it. Angel communicates with the group in Sanctuary and divulges that the Vault Key is kept with her in a heavily guarded Hyperion facility. The Vault Hunters prepare an attack on the facility, enlisting former Vault Hunters Brick and Mordecai. Roland and the Vault Hunters assault the Hyperion compound and meet Angel, who is a siren and Jack's daughter. She reveals Jack is using her to charge the Vault Key and requests to be killed in order to stop her father. Against Jack's efforts to defend her, Roland, Lilith, and the Vault Hunters destroy Angel's life support, killing her. An enraged Jack kills Roland in one of the saddest moments in the game for me. In the first game, the saddest moment for me was finding out that TK was killed by bandits. In the second game, it was Roland being killed by Jack. It hit me hard. And mind you, this was me before I started doing YouTube. So my reaction was like, "Oh, we gotta take out Jack. We gotta kill Jack." Because losing Roland, it hurt. Because you could see how much Lilith cared for him. And then Jack just shows up and shoots him in the back. An enraged Jack kills Roland and captures Lilith, forcing her to obey him, as he had done to Angel. Before Jack can make Lilith kill the Vault Hunters, she teleports them back to Sanctuary. Jack then uses her to continue charging the Vault Key in Angel's place. While Mordecai and Brick prepare an attack on the Vault Hunters travel to the Hyperion Information Annex and obtain the Vault's location. After mounting an attack, the Vault Hunters find and defeat Jack, but fail to prevent him from opening the vault and unleashing the Warrior. The Vault Hunters manage to kill it, and depending on player's choice, either execute Jack or let Lilith do it. I know for the first time I allowed Lilith to do it as payback. As Lilith then attempts to destroy the Vault Key, she accidentally activates an information bank which contains a map of the galaxy, indicating the locations of several vaults. Lilith remarks that there ain't no rest for the wicked before the screen cuts to black. During the credits, various scenes are shown of the Pandorans celebrating Handsome Jack's defeat and taking back their planet from the remaining Hyperion forces. So now we get to talk about the development and how Borderlands 1 went into how great it looks with Borderlands 2. It has everything basically improved greatly. You're gonna be like the Joker in the Batman movies? Do you mean like with Borderlands 4? Or do you just mean in general? Development! Following the release of the first Borderlands, developer Gearbox Software was simultaneously working on 3 distinct projects: finishing Duke Nukem Forever, creating Alien Colonial Marines, and working on a sequel to the original Borderlands. Out of those 3, only Borderlands 2 managed to be successful. Goodness gracious, because Duke Nukem Forever and Aliens Colonial Marines turned out to be one of the worst games ever made by Gearbox. Borderlands 2 saved them. My goodness, I didn't realize that they were working on Duke Nukem and creating alien colonial marines while they were working on Borderlands 2. Two duds and one success, but that one success really put Gearbox back on the map again, because boy was Duke Nukem and Aliens horrible games. The initial goal was to create a sequel similar in scale to the first game, but Borderlands' unexpected success enabled the team to expand their budget during the development of Borderlands 2, allowing them to expand their scope and create more content. The development budget ultimately grew to $30 to $35 million. Paul Hellquist served as the game's creative director, Jeremy Cook as its art director, and Anthony Birch as its writer. And then we have all these people whose names I'll probably get wrong, worked together to craft the game's original soundtracks, while Gearbox's Ryzen Varner provided additional music. I'm shocked I got that right. The game's development was completed on August 20th, 2012, with Gearbox confirming that it was being prepared for duplication and release. Art and design. Similar to the first game, Borderlands 2 adopted the concept art style, which features graphics inspired by both photorealistic imagery and comic book-inspired visuals. This was difficult to replicate because the first game was artfully unfinished. Its art style had been switched at the last stage of development, with some older visual designs present in the final product. To recreate the sense of imperfection and allow for innovation, the art team were given creative freedom while management avoided frequent requests for design revisions. Cook was responsible for creating a loose style guide for the game, and the team accepted work which deviated from these standards. Team members were also encouraged to submit creations that create boundaries. The design for Zero, a faceless assassin, faced scrutiny from upper management for deviating too much from what was expected, and what in the world? Felt like something was on my face. What the? Felt like something was just like crawling on my ear for a second. But no, I'm good. I'm good. The design for Zero, a faceless assassin, faced scrutiny from upper management for deviating too much from what was expected from Borderlands, but Cook refused to have the character redesigned as he felt that his design would be something new for the franchise, and people would love Zero after that, forever. To add more color to the game, a diverse set of environments were modeled, from glaciers to grasslands, as opposed to the first game, which is set entirely in a desert. With a more colorful world, the team believed that it would encourage players to explore each area, which worked out. Through having more vibrant colors and creating various landmarks, the team also thought that it helped to make each area distinct, which it successfully did. One of the early objectives for Hellquest was to improve the original game's shortcomings while creating an experience that felt new. A September 2011 survey asked players what they wanted in the new game, and DLCs for the first game were used to experiment and test what players might enjoy in the sequel. One of the early goals was to create a new set of characters, as the team felt that the original cast was too limiting. The team also made various quality of life improvements, such as improving the user interface to make navigating the game's menus easier. Menu layout was refined, and the team introduced additional environmental clues to better inform players how different areas are connected. Effort was also placed on making each area feel more dense and alive. They also wanted to improve the game's cooperative multiplayer, from incorporating private trading of weapons between players to introducing a four-passenger vehicle so that a cooperative team could stick together. A shared loot system was incorporated in order to facilitate a collaborative relationship between players. But at the same time, it encouraged those, especially randoms you came across, to try and pick up the loot first. Because you didn't get instant loot. Instant loot. I'm trying to say the word. How do you say instance? Instanced loot? Is that how you say it? I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But you didn't get loot that was unique to you playing versus what people had in their games until Borderlands 3. A shared loot system was incorporated in order to facilitate a collaborative relationship between players. And that only worked out if you were paired with people that you knew. Because if you played with randoms, that loot got looted. Gearbox also wanted to make unique weapons. The first game utilizes procedural generation to generate different guns, but the differences were not always distinguishable. To solve this problem, the team ensured that each gun manufacturer would have its own distinct gameplay and visual characteristics. To achieve this, each weapon manufacturer has a trademark style that would appeal to different players. For instance, the Malawan brand features weapons inspired by sci-fi technology, while the Doll brand was for players who preferred weapons that were more grounded in reality. The differences in the weapon manufacturers mean that players can easily identify the weapons they want to use. The Bandit brand was inspired by Mad Max and Death Race and featured a very home-built look. The Torg brand was influenced by engine blocks and aircraft designs from the 1940s and the 1950s. In contrast, TDOR was the throwaway brand, and the team took inspirations from disposable razors and lighters in the cheap Go phone. Story and characters, and this one's a little bit long, so I hope you don't mind. As many players complained about the forgettable story from the first game, because let's be honest here, as great as fun as Borderlands 1 is, its story is frankly forgettable. Birch strived to make the narrative compelling and unique by subverting players' expectations and including a plotline so ridiculous that it cannot be found in any other AAA games. Despite the script being 7 times longer than the originals, the story was not too overbearing on players, as the team believed that the essence of the game was about finding progressively more ridiculous guns to blow up psychotic little people instead of the story. To achieve this, the team minimized the use of cutscenes and focused on environmental storytelling. While the game features a humorous tone, the story retains dark moments to keep players invested. One of the darker moments was Angel's death, which went through multiple revisions as the team tried to refine the tone. Roland's death in the later part of the game was also a deliberate decision, as it makes the story more relevant and impactful. And it really did make people want to kill Jack even more. According to Hellquist, a diverse cast of characters played a huge role in defining Borderlands' identity. The story is delivered via interactions between these characters rather than text, unlike the first game. Birch's script introduced a large number of new characters, with Birch singling out Tiny Tina and Ellie as the best additions. The team crafted 3 to 5 side missions for these characters so that players could better understand their backstories and personalities, which worked out very well. Returning characters, especially the playable Vault Hunters from the first game, became major characters in the game's main narrative, so that players get to learn more about them and see how they interact with each other. Series mainstay Claptrap returned in Borderlands 2. He was initially envisioned to be arrogant, insulting, and profane, similar to his depiction in its web series. However, he was later written so that fans who hadn't seen the shorts wouldn't be shocked at Claptrap's sudden, jerkitude in Borderlands 2. Birch, in hindsight, stated that one of the biggest regrets was the inclusion of silenced protagonists, since they felt out of place in a game that features a large cast of eccentric characters and an over-the-top world. However, when playtesters complained about this, it was already too late for Birch to introduce dialogue for the playable characters because mission scripting had already been finished. To remedy the problem, he added character-specific audio logs to the game, allowing the Vault Hunters to narrate their backstory to the players. Birch initially wrote banter dialogue between the Vault Hunters, which would be triggered when the player left their controllers idle for a while, though this idea was scrapped. To create players' agency and motivation, the team attempted to incorporate a concrete goal and a central villain into the story. Handsome Jack served the purpose and helped remind players that he is a constant threat, the point of the game, and that one of the ultimate goals is to kill him. Jack was envisioned as a charismatic jerk mirroring Birch's own personality. He was a fun, likable antagonist who is hard to outright hate but nonetheless deserves everything he has coming to him. Birch was inspired by classic villains including GLaDOS from Portal and Shodan from System Shock. and stated that he would have been the protagonist if the story was told from a different perspective. While Jack has a dismissive attitude in the early section, he becomes more aggressive after the death of his daughter Angel. This was to create a revenge arc to make him more memorable. The game is set 5 years after the first game, in order to show how Jack, who rose to power following the events of the first game, influenced Pandora during this period. And of course, we have all like the marketing and the release, retail editions, and the downloadable content, such as Captain Scarlet and her pirate's booty, Mr. Torg's Campaign of Carnage, which introduced us to the main man himself, Mr. Torg, Sir Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt. I completely forgot who the big bad was supposed to be. Professor Nakayama. Yeah, Professor Nakayama trying to create a clone of Handsome Jack. Yeah, I kind of remembered him. And then, what many would consider one of the best pieces of DLC in any video game, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. Campaign is set within the world of a fantasy-themed tabletop role-playing game known as Bunkers and Bad A's, with Tiny Tina serving as a game master, sometimes modifying the game world according to her whims. The campaign's frame story surrounds Tiny Tina's struggle to accept the death of Roland. It received the highest ratings among the 4 add-on packs. Assault on Dragon Keep became the basis for the standalone game in the Borderlands series, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Released in March 2022, this content was made into a standalone release, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, a Wonderlands one-shot adventure, and released on November 9th, 2021 for Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Following the release of the 4 add-on campaigns, Gearbox announced plans to release the Headhunter series of DLCs. These packs generally cost less than the add-on campaigns and feature less content. Gearbox originally intended to make 3 Headhunter packs, but ultimately created 5, which were TK Baha's Bloody Harvest, The Horrible Hunter of the Ravenous Water Gobbler, How Marcus Saved Mercenary Day, Mad Moxie and the Wedding Day Massacre, and Sir Hammerlock vs. the Son of Cromorax. The game's last DLC, Commander Lilith and the Fight for Sanctuary, was announced and released on June 9th, 2019. The DLC was released for PC and for the Handsome Collection version of the game on Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. It was available as a free download for the first month after release. The story of the DLC picks up after the events of Borderlands 2 and acts as a bridge to the story of Borderlands 3, setting up the transition to the new Sanctuary 3 base ship and bringing characters from 2014's Tales from the Borderlands into the bigger story. In the DLC, after Helios Station has crashed on the surface of Pandora, Lilith and the other Vault Hunters struggle with what they have learned from the Vault map, of potentially many more vaults on other planets. As they try to figure out some way to make a space-worthy ship, Sanctuary is attacked by Dahl's Colonel Hector, who has created a powerful mutant army using a strange floral spore. The group abandons Sanctuary and takes shelter at a former bandit camp, now empty except for its leader, Vaughn, which is a character from Tales of the Borderlands, who is also friend with Reese before everything goes all pear-shaped, as Hector mutated his followers. The Vault Hunters work with Vaughn and other allies to take back Sanctuary and the Vault map from Hector. And of course, it also has a VR version. And the critical reception was very, very high. The game received generally positive reviews upon release. According to review aggregator Metacritic, many reviewers agreed that the game is a notable improvement over the original. And it did well with sales, and then it had some controversies concerning Gage and her skill tree a little bit. And then some stuff about Tiny Tina, but it didn't really last long. And then all the awards that it won. Best Shooter, Best Multiplayer Game, Best Performance by a Human Male, Damian Clark as Handsome Jack, Character of the Year being Claptrap somehow, Best DLC nominated, Action Game of the Year at the 16th Annual DICE Awards, leading performance in a comedy for David Eddings as Claptrap, who would be replaced by another voice for uh, Borderlands 3 after that. Supporting performance in a comedy, Clark as Handsome Jack again. And then we have prequel and sequel. So, now we're going to cover Borderlands, the pre-sequel. But let me just give my 2 cents on Borderlands 2. When I heard that Borderlands 1 would be getting a sequel with Borderlands 2, and I saw the announcement trailer, which featured the soundtrack, which featured the track Doomsday, it was literally one of the best trailers I ever saw for a video game, because it made me absolutely hype, seeing all these new characters, Salvador, Zero, Maya, Axton, and just thinking about taking on Handsome Jack. I was like, they sold how awesome the game was going to be, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. The game as a whole was fantastic. I enjoyed everything about it. The story was great. The environments were great. The gameplay was way better than Borderlands 1. Playing as these different characters that I would make numerous different builds for, fun. Gage and Krieg, awesome. Just everything about the game was amazing, and the DLCs were great as well. Now, mind you, the headhunters were, short term, but at the same time, the longer length ones, specifically Tiny Tina and the Assault on Dragon Keep, that was reasons enough to create entirely brand new characters, level them up in order to go through the DLC. That's just how good it was. They did everything right with Borderlands 2. So as we enter into the era of the pre-sequel in Borderlands 3, you'll see that they kind of faltered with 2 of these games. They faltered a little bit with pre-sequel because it didn't have the same chops as Borderlands 2, and Borderlands 3 had what many, including myself, would call the weakest story out of the entire series thus far. You could follow the story a lot better with the pre-sequel, but Borderlands 3, it was very weak. It was very weak. So, Borderlands, the pre-sequel, is a 2014 action role-playing first-person shooter video game developed by 2K Australia. Now, mind you, this isn't the same, the thing that makes it so that this Borderlands did not hit as well as the other ones. Mind you, it was still fun, but it didn't hit as well as the others was because it was made by a different studio within 2K, and not the OGs at Gearbox. Assistance came from Gearbox, but it wasn't built by Gearbox. Developed by 2K Australia with assistance from Gearbox Software and published by 2K. It is the 3rd game in the Borderlands series, and is a spin-off set after 2009's Borderlands and before 2012's Borderlands 2. Released for Linux, OS X, PlayStation 3, Windows, and Xbox 360. Upgraded ports for PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One as part of the Handsman Collection that I also got. The storyline of the pre-sequel focuses on Jack, an employee of the Hyperion Corporation, after the company's Helios space station is captured by a military unit known as the Lost Legion. He leads a group of 4 Vault Hunters, all of whom were non-playable characters and bosses in previous Borderlands games, on an expedition to regain control of Helios, defeat the Lost Legion, and find the hidden vault on Pandora's moon, Elpis. The game expands upon the engine and gameplay of Borderlands 2 and introduces new gameplay mechanics including low-gravity environments, freeze weapons, and oxygen tanks, which are used to navigate and perform ground-slamming attacks, which would then become a mainstay for the rest of the series. The pre-sequel received positive reviews, being praised for its new gameplay features and character classes, but was criticized for its confusing level design and not providing enough significant deviations from the core mechanics and gameplay of Borderlands 2. Now, you can see that this is what we got for the gameplay section. This is how small it is. Gameplay in the pre-sequel is similar to Borderlands 2, but with the addition of new mechanics. 2 varieties of items have been added, including laser guns and items possessing a cryogenic elemental effect, which can be used to slow down and freeze enemies. Enemies that are frozen take increased damage from explosive, melee, or critical attacks and are smashed into pieces when killed. The game features low-gravity environments, causing players to jump higher but slower, and items such as loot and dead bodies to float away. O2 kits are added to supply air while in space. Oxygen supplies can be replenished using generators, vents, and through oxygen tank items dropped by enemies. The kits can be used like a jetpack to perform double jumps, hovering, and ground slamming attacks. As with other items, different types of O2 kits can provide stat bonuses and affect how ground slams deal damage. They're not the exact same as class mods, but they're a new additional. They pretty much replace artifacts, if I remember correctly. They pretty much replace artifacts for the prequel. A new grinder machine allows players to deposit combinations of existing weapons to receive one of higher rarity. Vehicles were introduced, including a moon buggy and the Stingray, a type of hoverbike. As with Borderlands 2, completing the mains campaign with a character unlocks true Vault Hunter mode. A second playthrough that is higher in difficulty while beating the mode and reaching level 50 unlocks the third playthrough, Ultimate Vault Hunter mode. Synopsis! And the plot is kind of lengthy. Yeah, the plot is kind of lengthy, but we also need to cover the Claptastic Voyage as well. And looking at the development, kind of good, but not as big as it was for Borderlands 2. Characters! The prequel features 4 playable characters, each with a different class and abilities. All 4 of the prequel's protagonists were non-playable characters, NPCs, or bosses in previous Borderlands games. Athena, the Gladiator, is a rogue assassin from the Atlas Corporation introduced in the Borderlands DLC campaign, The Secret Armory of General Knox. As her primary skill, Athena can temporarily use a shield to absorb damage. Her skill tree revolves around upgrading the shield, allowing it to be thrown at enemies and absorb and reflect elemental damage, or towards melee attacks or elemental damage. Since there are no sirens to play within the prequel, Athena was the closest for just full-on elemental effects in general. Nisha, the Lawbringer, first appeared in Borderlands 2 as Handsome Jack's girlfriend and the sheriff of the town of Lynchwood. Now that I think about it, don't like the name of that place. Her primary skill, Showdown, allows her to automatically aim at enemies for a period of time, increasing gun performance for the duration. She essentially has aimbot. Her skill tree revolves around increasing her survivability, showdown performance, or gun damage. And if you spec'd into it, you could then dual-wield pistols, which would then add on to her aimbot capabilities, and you would just take everybody out. Claptrap, the Frag Trap, is the last remaining robot of its kind as of Borderlands 2. His skill, VaultHunter.exe, generates random effects depending on the current situation. These effects can have a positive or negative effect on the player and their party members. Among those effects are versions of skills used by the previous playable characters in the franchise, such as having a turret appear next to you, but also in the form and function of a Claptrap unit, or being able to dual-wield guns, but you can't stop firing, or just basically turn into a walking pirate ship while the 1812 Overture just keeps playing while you're firing cannons at your enemies in tune with the song. Wilhelm the Enforcer is a mercenary who becomes increasingly augmented with technology and weaponry over the course of the game, transforming him into Jack's cybernetic minion who is fought in Borderlands 2. So, when it comes to skills, this is the first time we see a character actually change appearance as you give them more skills. As you spec into Wilhelm, and you give him, and you spec into skills that change his abilities, such as changing his arm or changing his legs, you physically see him change those pieces for cybernetic parts, which then eventually leads him to looking like he does when you fight him in Borderlands 2. He can summon a pair of drones, Wolf and Saint. Wolf serves as an offensive role by attacking other enemies, while Saint defends Wilhelm by providing shields and health regeneration. 2 additional playable characters have been released as downloadable content. The first character, Jack the Doppelganger, is a man called Timothy Lawrence working as a body double of Jack who can summon digital copies of himself to help in battle. Jack is one of my Jack the Doppelganger is one of my favorite characters in the prequel. The second, Aurelia, the Baroness, is the sister of Sir Hammerlock, who uses an experimental Frost Diadem shard to deal ice elemental damage to enemies. Catch up later, start packing for a family trip. All right, anime gamer, you enjoy your trip. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Or whenever you get back. Multiple characters from past Borderlands titles also appear. Handsome Jack, the main antagonist of Borderlands 2, appears as a key non-playable character, with the game's story mainly centered around his descent into villainy and rise to power. Additional returning characters include Ms. Mad Moxie, Tiny Tina, Sir Hammerlock, Professor Nakayama, Crazy Earl, and Mr. Torg. The 4 playable Vault Hunters from the first game, Lilith, Roland, Brick, and Mordecai, also appear in supporting roles. The prequel's DLC includes appearances from Borderlands 2's playable Vault Hunters Gage and Axton, Patricia Tannis, Dr. Zed, Mr. Blake, and TK Baha. Now for the plot! The prequel begins on Sanctuary after the events of Borderlands 2 and Episode 3, almost bit my tongue there, and Episode 3 of Tales from the Borderlands, where Lilith, Brick, and Mordecai interrogate the captured Athena. Athena recounts her story via flashback, starting after the death of General Knox in the first game, where she received an offer to find a vault on Pandora's moon, Elpis, from a Hyperion programmer named Jack. She joins fellow Vault Hunters Claptrap, Nisha, Wilhelm, Timothy, and Aurelia on a spaceship headed for the Hyperion moon base Helios. On the way, they are ambushed by the Lost Legion, an army of former Dahl Marines led by Tungstina Zarpedon. That's her name, and crash land onto Helios. After meeting up with Jack, they try to use Helios' defense system against the Lost Legion, but there is a jamming signal coming from Elpis. They attempt to escape but are stopped by Zarpedon and a mysterious alien, so Jack stays behind and sends the Vault Hunters to Elpis via a moonshot rocket. On Elpis, the Vault Hunters are guided by the junk dealer Janie Springs to the spaceport town Concordia. There, they request help from Jack's ex-girlfriend Moxie to disable the jamming signal. They discover that the signal was put up by the Merif, a former subordinate of Jack, who is now in charge of Concordia. Meanwhile, Zarpedon uses Helios' primary weapon, the Eye of Helios, to fire upon Elpis, intending to destroy it to stop Jack from opening the vault. Jack kills the Merif, then decides to build a robot army to retake Helios. The team infiltrates a Lost Legion base run by 2 Dahl officers, the bosun and the skipper, in search of a military artificial intelligence. After defeating the bosun, the skipper, who renames herself Felicity, is revealed to be the AI they seek. The Vault Hunters travel to a robot production facility where Jack enlists Gladstone, a Hyperion scientist, to build his army. Gladstone suggests using his prototype robot, the Constructor, which can build an infinite number of robots. Felicity agrees to become the AI for the Constructor, but hesitates upon witnessing the violence she has to go through. She is forced into the Constructor, but takes control of it and battles the Vault Hunters. Felicity is defeated and her personality is deleted from the Constructor. With his robot army, Jack and the Vault Hunters travel to Helios with the aid of Moxie and former Vault Hunters Roland and Lilith. On Helios, Jack kills Gladstone and his team of scientists, suspecting one of them to be a Lost Legion spy. This is when you start to see that Jack is losing it, and the ends justify the means. Because Gladstone was chill until we have to watch him be ejected out of an airlock. And that's when Lilith and Roland see, like, you know what? This Jack person isn't good. I don't know. Maybe it's because of my hair. It might be because of my hair. It feels like there was something there, but I'm good. The Vault Hunters defeat Zarpedon and proceed to reboot the Eye of Helios, which is revealed to be the Eye of the Destroyer from the first game, turned into a weapon by Jack. I completely forgot that the Eye of Helios was the Eye of the Destroyer. And now it's bringing back all those memories of when I saw that the first time. I'm getting flashbacks now. Moxie, Roland, and Lilith betray Jack and destroy the Eye to prevent him from gaining its power. Seeking revenge, Jack and the Vault Hunters travel back to Elpis, where they find its vault already opened. They battle the vault's alien forces and defeat its guardian, the Empyrean Sentinel. Jack enters the vault but finds nothing of value other than a mysterious floating symbol. As he interacts with it, the symbol shows Jack a vision of the warrior. However, he is interrupted by Lilith, who destroys the vault symbol, burning it onto Jack's face and disfiguring him, which then later leads to him having that replacement face over his face and him being called Handsome Jack later on. She teleports away, leaving a scarred and insane Jack behind, who swears vengeance on Lilith and all the bandits on Pandora. Seeing how low Jack has fallen, Athena leaves his employ. After listening to Athena's story, Lilith orders the Crimson Raiders to execute her against Brick and Mordecai's protests. However, as they open fire on her, Athena is saved by the alien previously seen on Helios, revealed to be an Iridian. The Iridian warns the Vault Hunters of an imminent war, and that they will need all the Vault Hunters they can get. During the credits, several scenes reveal what became of the Vault Hunters afterwards. Wilhelm and Nisha join Jack. Wilhelm is transformed further into a machine and destroys the settlement of New Haven, while Nisha is made Lynchwood's sheriff and hooks up with Jack. Athena discards the money given to her by Jack and leaves Elpis. Claptrap is dismantled and left for dead by Jack. In a post-credit scene, Jack, now calling himself Handsome Jack and wearing a synthetic mask, murders his CEO Harold Tassiter and replaces him as the new head of Hyperion. Now for Claptastic Voyage. The Claptastic Voyage story add-ons continues shortly after Handsome Jack's takeover of Hyperion, as he discovers a secret program called the H-Source, containing all of Hyperion's secrets. However, it was hidden inside the Frag Trap unit by Tassiter. Jack employs his Vault Hunters once more to be digitally scanned and sent into Claptrap's mind in order to retrieve the H-Source. In the process, the Vault Hunters are tricked into releasing Shadow Trap, a subroutine representing Claptrap's inner evil side, who attempts to use the H-Source for his own gains. As the group pursues Shadow Trap, they delve deeper into Claptrap's mind, learning of his origin and the reasons for his quirky behavior. Eventually, the group defeats Shadow Trap and retrieve the H-Source for Jack. Jack reveals his plan to use the H-Source to wipe out all existing Claptrap units, including Claptrap himself. All Claptrap units are disabled and dumped in Windshear Waste. However, Shadow Trap, who still remains alive within Claptrap, sacrifices himself to revive Claptrap, allowing him to be found and saved by Sir Hammerlock, and making Claptrap pretty much the only remaining CL4 TP unit in existence. So now let's move on to the development, shall we? And the development is quite lengthy as well. Borderlands 2, developed by Gearbox Software and released in late 2012, was one of the most successful video games in 2K's history. Speaking in February 2013, Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford stated that there were no plans for a third installment in the franchise, as the company believed that a sequel to Borderlands 2 would have to be massive, but that when you think of what Borderlands 3 should be, no, we don't know what that is yet. We can imagine what it must achieve, but we don't know what it is yet. The company also cited a desire to focus its attention onto new games for next-generation consoles, such as Brothers in Arms Furious 4, Homeworld Shipbreakers, a new game in the Homeworld franchise, which Gearbox has recently acquired in THQ's bankruptcy auction, and new properties such as Battleborn. That one didn't last. Despite this, the company still believed that they had not yet met the demands of fans, or even its own staff in regards to the franchise, even with the overall success of Borderlands 2 and the large amount of downloadable content that had been released, prompting the creation of spin-offs such as Tales from the Borderlands, an episodic adventure game being developed by Telltale Games, and a port of Borderlands 2 for PlayStation Vita. A few months after the release of Borderlands 2, and shortly after it had concluded its contributions to BioShock Infinite, Gearbox began working with 2K Australia to develop a prequel to the game which would take place directly after the events of the original. The decision to make the game a prequel to Borderlands 2 was centered around a desire to use the Hyperion Moonbase, a location alluded to and visible in Borderlands 2, as a playable location. The development team felt that going to the Moonbase in a sequel to Borderlands 2 would be too boring for players since the relevant conflict was already resolved, and because if we're going to go to the Moonbase anyway, what if we try something completely different than people aren't expecting? Pitchford noted that this setting would allow the players to address plot elements and events alluded to in the first two games that were not yet completely addressed, on the possibility that the game could introduce holes in the continuity of the franchise. He joked that this franchise already contained many plot holes to begin with. He suggested that working on the prequel could be a breakout role for 2K Australia, similar to Gearbox's own Half-Life Opposing Force. As for the size of the game, Pitchford stated that the prequel's playable world would be in between the size of the original and Borderlands 2. 2K Australia performed the majority of development on the prequel, but worked in collaboration with Gearbox on certain aspects of the game. The studio also provided its writing staff, including Anthony Birch, lead writer of Borderlands 2, as a complement to 2K Australia's own writers. The engine of Borderlands 2 was used as a starting point, allowing the 2K Australia team to quickly prototype and implement features on top of the existing functionality already provided by Borderlands 2. Most of the new mechanics in the game, such as ice weaponry, were conceived by the 2K Australia team. Gearbox's developers had shown concerns that freezing weapons were illogical in comparison to other elemental weapon types, such as incendiary and acid, but Pitchford excused their inclusion in the prequel because cryogenic technology was more natural in the space-oriented setting of the game. The four playable characters had an increased amount of dialogue in comparison to their equivalents in previous installments. NPC dialogue can change depending on the characters present. The moon's inhabitants were portrayed as being Australians, allowing for references to Australian comedy and culture, including missions referencing cricket, the folk song Waltzing Matilda. I remember having to sing that song when I was a kid in elementary school. Waltzing Matilda, you'll go will you go waltzing Matilda with me? I can't remember the exact tone of the song itself, my apologies. And a talking shotgun based upon the Bogon stereotype. Bruce Spence, a New Zealand actor known for his role as a gyro captain in Mad Max 2, the second film in the Mad Max franchise that was cited as an influence on the setting of Borderlands as a whole, is among the game's voice actors, voicing a gyrocopter pilot in reference to his role from the film. Harmonix partnered with 2K to animate the titular sequence in the game's Moon Dance Break trailer. As a result, Nisha and Claptrap would appear as bonus characters and Dance Central Spotlight. The pre-sequel would be the final video game developed by 2K Australia, as the studio was shut down on the 16th of April in 2015. And we have the release and the downloadable content, including the Claptastic Voyage. Of course, it has the Holodome, Onslaught, and the Doppelganger, and Lady Aurelia as well, but the Claptastic Voyage was among the most important ones. And the reception was around the same as Borderlands 1, though not to the degree of Borderlands 2 due to its slightly smaller size. So it was still kind of positive for a great deal of people, but the story was not as impactful as it was for Borderlands 2 in terms of memorabilia, because name one line from its villain Zarpedon. Because Borderlands is known for its memorable villains. But name one line from Zarpedon. Zarpedon didn't exactly have the same impact as Handsome Jack did. So, that was the pre-sequel. Let's see. IGN gave the Claptastic Voyage campaign an 8.4 out of 10, praising it for its whimsical setting, new mechanics, making better use of the anti-gravity mechanics that were introduced by the pre-sequel, and for not containing the excessive backtracking and pacing problems faced by the game's main storyline. Didn't quite match the towering success of Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep for Borderlands 2, but it still handily set a high watermark for the pre-sequel. It's lean and focused in a way that the main game it belongs to sometimes wasn't, yet it still feels substantial and complete. So that's pretty much the development of Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and its history. Now we move on to the last one we had. So if I go back to Borderlands 2, and then move over to Borderlands 3. That is the most recent one. And then we have Borderlands 4 that drops in literally a couple of days. Literally 3 days. In 3 days. Borderlands 3 is a 2019 action role-playing first-person shooter video game developed by Gearbox Software and published by 2K. It is a sequel to 2012's Borderlands 2 and the fourth entry in the main Borderlands series. Borderlands 3 was released on the 13th of September 2019 for PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One, and released for Mac OS on the 30th of October 2019. A Stadia port was released. Stadia. Who remembers when that used to actually be somewhat relevant? Was released on the 17th of December 2019. Versions of the Xbox Series X and Series S and PlayStation 5, including free upgrades for users on the prior console versions, were released on the 10th and 12th of November 2020, respectively. A Nintendo Switch version was released on the 6th of October 2 years ago, in 2023. Players complete quests and side missions in single player or multiplayer as one of 4 classes. When killed, enemies may drop weapons and gear which can be equipped. New abilities are unlocked as the player gains experience. The plot is centered on 4 new Vault Hunters recruited by the Crimson Raiders of Pandora to stop twins Troy and Tyrene Calypso and their insane cult followers from harnessing the power of the alien vault spread across the galaxy. Upon release, Borderlands 3 received generally favorable reviews with praise directed to its gameplay, though some criticized the lack of innovation, technical issues, and writing. And they would be right. The initial sales of the game were the highest of the Borderlands series. More than 5 million copies were sold in 5 days. A sequel, Borderlands 4, is in development for September 12, 2026, 2025 release. Sorry, I meant to say 2025, because not only were they confident in what they're going to be doing for Borderlands 4, but they actually moved the release date up. Oh yeah, we're good. Let's move it up then. Because it was going to be releasing on the 28th. It was going to be releasing on the 28th. Gameplay. How long is this? Oh, this actually might be the longest. This might actually be the longest gameplay segment that we have. Borderlands 3 is a first-person looter shooter. Players, either playing alone or in parties of up to 4 people, make a character from one of the 4 classes available and take on various missions given out by non-playable characters, NPCs, and bounty boards to gain experience and gain monetary rewards and reward items. Players can also gain these items by defeating enemies throughout the game. As the player gains levels, they gain skill points to allocate across a skill tree. The game introduces 4 new playable characters: Amara, a siren who summons ethereal fists; Mose, a young gunner who rides the mecha Iron Bear; Zane, an operative with a variety of gadgets; and Flak, a robot beastmaster who summons creatures to aid in fights. Unlike previous Borderlands games, where each character had only one unique skill that operates on a cooldown, each character in the new game can unlock 3 unique skills, though only 1, or in Zane's case 2, can be equipped at a time, greatly expanding the number of potential character builds a player can make. Borderlands 3 shares the same core loop with previous games around taking on missions, defeating enemies, and obtaining loot from fallen foes or special chests, most often in the form of procedurally generated weapons to vary in damage, range, ammo capacity, and other special perks, giving the game over 1 billion guns. Perks can include elemental effects, such as damaging the foe with fire, ice, or electricity, or may possess alternative firing behavior, among other visual differences. In Borderlands 2, some weapons had slag elemental, which debuffed the enemy for a short period and made them extremely vulnerable to a subsequent elemental attack from a different element. Slag weapons have been replaced with radiation, which is way better. Radiation is way better than slag, because slag was the only way you could ever succeed in Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, let alone the overpowered levels. You had to use slag, or you would die. In Borderlands 3, you can use whatever element you want. Radiation is nice, it's good for debuffing, but it's not the end-all, be-all that people use every single time, because everything was, kind of relegated quite well in terms of elemental power and whatnot. So, I don't miss slag. I don't miss slag at all. It's powerful when used in conjunction with a weapon that also does another element, but having to constantly rely on slag in order to actually get by was not a fan of that. Slag weapons have been replaced with radiation. There is a debuff, but unlike slag, which gives a damage increase to the player, radiation will damage enemies over time on its own and can, what's going on, High Dragon? And can potentially spread to other enemies through explosions on enemy death. The in-game manufacturer of the guns also plays a larger role in the type of perks a weapon can have. TDR guns can be thrown when empty and create additional effects. Atlas have tracking bullets to hunt down enemies in cover, and Hyperion can have shields that absorb damage and use that for other purposes such as healing as well as having a reverse recoil mechanic. Other randomly generated items include class modifiers, grenade modifiers, shield kits, and relics. While playing with others, Borderlands 3's loot can be generated on a per server basis, meaning, and this is when things got so much better for the Borderlands series, and a lot less annoying when you're playing with randoms. Meaning that players must split the loot, but new to the series, players can also have loot generated on a per player basis. That's what I mean. So that each player gains the same loot scaled for their character level. This option also exists for the enemies seen in-game. By default, enemies only scale with the player character's level that is operating the server, but when enabled, each player sees enemies that match their individual levels, meaning that you can play with your friends regardless of the level because the game will scale to you. So that was already fantastic. Besides character skills and weapons, player characters have new combat maneuvers and abilities such as crouch sliding, influenced by the mechanics in Titanfall and Apex Legends, and wall mounting to climb up over short heights. Players and their enemies can take cover behind short barriers, which can be destroyed after continued weapon onslaught. While the game starts on the planet Pandora, the player early on gains access to a spacecraft, Sanctuary 3, which serves as a central hub between missions, and is used to set destinations for new planets where possible vaults have been identified. While aboard Sanctuary 3, players can manage their inventory, recover guns they have left on the field, because that's the first time we get a Borderlands game where if you drop a gun out in the open, the game will remember that, and if you have space in your little bank, it will hold those guns. What is it? What is it? What is it called? What is the machine called? I forget the name of the actual machine. The actual machine where it picks up the loot that you leave behind, specifically legendaries and such. The player can manage their inventory, recover guns they had left on the field, redo their skill tree, purchase new guns and upgrades, and take on optional missions. Borderlands 3 has integration with Twitch streams. Viewers can explore the streamer's inventory and skill tree, and special chests in-game will offer the opportunity for viewers to receive the same gun item that the streamer finds via way of a shift code they can enter into their own game, scaled appropriately for their character's level. Gearbox creative director Paul Sage estimated that players will spend about 35 hours through the main quest line, along with some side missions. Boy, did he have no idea how many hours people would spend. How many hours do I have for Borderlands 3 as a whole? I got 790 hours on the PS5 version of the game. And I have what was it? 1000. Hold on, let me reconnect my system real quick. Okay, now it wants to act all sedity and doesn't want to connect so I can see my progress, how much time I actually put into Borderlands 3. But it was like I think it was like 13, like 1,300 and something hours. It was either 1,212 or 1,313. Either one of those. I know I wrote it down. I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, wait. Never mind. It's still not working. It's still not working. Eh, I'll worry about it later. Yeah. I'll worry about it later. I'll worry about it later. But I sunk 4 digits worth of hours into Borderlands 3. True Vault Hunter mode, a type of new game plus, allows players to replay the campaign after finishing it with their leveled up character, fighting more difficult enemies for a chance of better loot. The Bad A rank system from Borderlands 2 is replaced with a Guardian rank system, which, by finishing smaller challenges throughout the game, allows players to gain buffs that persist across all their characters. Borderlands 3 it already happened, includes new post-game challenges. Circles of Slaughter found on various planets have players attempt to fight through difficult waves of enemies for higher quality of loot. And boy, did your screen fill up with tons of loot if you were playing on Mayhem 10 and you had the loot explosion modifier. Legendaries drop like crazy. Way too often. While downed players can be revived by teammates, if all player characters die, the match is over, and any potential rewards are lost. Proving grounds are a type of raid that must be first discovered by finding hidden markings across the game's worlds. Once discovered, players attempt to defeat all enemies across 3 areas within 30 minutes to complete the challenge and earn their rewards. A further Mayhem mode provides several bonuses to the player, including increased damage, experience, and rare item drops, while also increasing enemy health and randomizing several of the game's campaign elements to further increase the challenge to the players. So now we move on. Now we move on to the synopsis. As part of the Borderlands series, Borderlands 3 is centered on the planet Pandora, which has been long rumored to contain vaults holding vast amounts of treasure and technology, left behind by a mysterious alien civilization known as the Iridians. In decades prior, several corporations had laid siege to Pandora to try to find the vaults, but the constant conflict and bloodshed has left the planet and its population ravaged and crazed. However, there are still those independently searching for the vaults known as Vault Hunters, the player characters. Borderlands 3 takes place 7 years after the events of Borderlands 2 and Tales from the Borderlands. In Borderlands 2, it was discovered that numerous other vaults exist on other planets in the galaxy. In the power vacuum left by the defeat of Handsome Jack, twin siblings Troy and Tyrene Calypso formed the Children of the Vault, COV, a violent cult of personality formed from the remnants of the planet's many bandit factions to gain possession of the other vaults, specifically one called the Great Vault. Lilith, a member of a race of women with alien powers called Sirens and current leader of the Crimson Raiders, a resistance force created to protect Pandora, recruits new Vault Hunters to help stop the Calypsos. Several characters from past Borderlands games make a return. Previously playable Vault Hunters Lilith, Claptrap, Zero, Maya, Brick, and Mordecai appear as NPCs. Aurelia, Sir Hemlock's sister and one of the playable Vault Hunters in Borderlands the prequel, also appears as a boss. Returning NPCs include gun salesman Marcus Kincaid, explosive expert Tiny Tina, now going by just Tina, entrepreneur Ms. Mad Moxie and her mechanic daughter Ellie, cyborg hunter Sir Alistair Hammerlock, archaeologist Patricia Tanis, weapons manufacturer Mr. Torg, and isolating iridium trader Crazy Earl. Reese Strongfork, one of the 2 playable protagonists in Tales from the Borderlands, and his best friend Vaughn also appear. Playable Vault Hunters from previous titles include Timothy Lawrence from the prequel, and Gage, Krieg, Axton, and Salvador from Borderlands 2 are featured as NPCs in the game's DLC. Now for the plot. Answering a recruiting call from the Crimson Raiders, a team of Vault Hunters, Amara, Mose, Zane, and Flack, arrive on Pandora and meet the Crimson Raiders leader, Lilith, who orders them to recover a lost vault map, which the Children of the Vault have recently obtained. The Vault Hunters find the map, which redirects them to the city planet of Promethea, the location of the first discovered vault and the Atlas Corporation's headquarters. However, before they can depart, they are ambushed by the Calypso twins, Tyrene and Troy, who reveal they are both sirens from being conjoined at birth and that Troy needs Tyrene's powers to survive. Tyrene steals Lilith's powers with her life-draining abilities. Your patriotism has started to stir. You'll soon have to leave to join your friends in spreading democracy and Helldivers. I wish you all a good day. Also, less than 45 hours till the Borderlands 4 release. You do what you need to do, Mihai, for democracy, for Super Earth. Ba 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 ba. I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but you enjoy spreading democracy across the galaxy, my friend. I'm going to keep reading this, though. Tyreen steals Lilith's powers with her life-draining abilities, then takes the map and leaves for Promethea with Troy. The Vault Hunters and Crimson Raiders take the Sanctuary 3 ship to Promethea. On arrival, they find the planet under attack by the Maliwan Corporation. And I see people say Maliwan or Maliwan, but I say Maliwan. Maliwan. Mala. Like Kala. So I say Maliwan. Maliwan Corporation and COV forces, as Maliwan CEO Katagawa Jr. has joined forces with the Calypso twins on a hostile takeover attempt on Atlas, now owned by Reese. The Vault Hunters help Reese stall the attack, after which he directs them to the planet Athenas, where the Promethean Vault Key is kept. On Athenas, the Vault Hunters help Maya and her apprentice Ava Hush, Denim, you're not a part of this stream. For my curiosity, will you ever do a Helldiver stream in the future? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. It's been brought up, but it's really like, I don't know. I feel more strongly about it now since they've improved some things, but I don't know. 'Cause I feel like I'm going to be spending a lot of time with Borderlands for a while. So, I don't know, but I'm not going to say no. I don't know, but I'm not going to say no. It's on a list. It's on a list of games that people want me to play on the channel. It's on a list. It's on a list. But yeah. The Vault Hunters help Maya. No problem, I was just curious. The new update was awesome. I've been hearing a lot of things about the new update. Been watching different people play it as well. From Smitty to basically anyone else who enjoys Helldivers to a great degree. So I've been checking out some gameplay here and there, and it looks a lot better than it did previously. However, I kind of constantly remember the whole debacle they went through when they wanted to force people to make a PlayStation account in order to play the game, and a lot of their audience were PC players. So during that time, it made very little sense. So it was that was a whole thing going down. But I feel strongly about it. You say dragons in Helldivers? Since when? I didn't see none of that. Where did dragons come from? Okay, I may have to look into this then. Okay. On Athenas, I'll have to look into their newest update and see what they got. Don't they have like a Star Wars thing going on? Like a Star Wars? No, I'm thinking of Destiny. And they just had a stream for their Renegade stuff. Destiny is a sham of what it used to be. My goodness. I remember looking forward to booting up Destiny on a regular basis. Now it's like, I don't even want to boot it up because I don't want to see no ads of me going to the Eververse shop or, oh, all of your weapons are now weak because we reset the power of your stuff every single time a season ends. And I'm like, what? So all that hard work and hours I pour into my weapons, it gets reset all the time? Why would I play a game like that? I like games where if I get stronger, I stay strong. I can't get behind a game. And I know this is a completely different tangent from Borderlands, but I can't get behind a game that tells you you can gain all this power, but we're going to reset that power that you'll have to do it all over again every single season. I can't get behind a game like that because that feels like you're just taking all the hours that I spend leveling and getting strong and all the hardships I may have gone through to get this weapon to where I want it to be and get all these perks, only for you to say like, "Well, time to reset. Now you start back over again." And you want me to do that all year? You want me to do that every season? No, I can't get behind that. That's the reason why I don't play Destiny anymore. They've literally killed any hope and hype I used to have for the game. I used to go on a vendetta where I wanted to get all the hand cannons, all the exotic hand cannons. I got the Lumina, I got the Ace of Spades, I got the Thorn, I got the what is it called? What is it called? I got the Strum is not a hand cannon, but it's a pistol. But I wanted to get all of the hand cannons in the game. I got the Crimson as well. Hush, Dedham, you don't need to go outside. But I got all these guns, but now I feel absolutely no pull or drive to ever boot up Destiny ever again because it's a shadow of what it used to be. And I'm saying that without even looking at the newest Renegade live stream that they did earlier this morning. So, I highly doubt my opinion is going to change, but it's just I don't. It's a disappointment. That's the reason why I like games like Borderlands. Hey, you got all this stuff. You spent all this time to earn all this stuff. You get to keep that stuff, and you get to remain strong. New season popping up. Good. More stuff for you. We're not gonna nerf the stuff that you work so hard to get your hands on, or even nerf how powerful you can be. No, we're just gonna let you keep going and get stronger, and we'll even introduce new ways for you to get stronger as well. That's the reason why I'll stick with Borderlands before I ever boot up Destiny ever again. On Athenas, the Vault Hunters help Maya and her apprentice Ava recover the key, learning it is only one-third of the artifact. Maya and Ava join the Crimson Raiders. The Vault Hunters return to Promethea, disable Malawan's orbital laser cannon powered by the second part of the key, and kill Katagawa. Did they even spell Katagawa? No, someone got it wrong. It says Katawaga, but it's supposed to be Katagawa. Man, Kyushu, the stories I'll tell you when you play Borderlands 4 Anime Gamer in the future, oh, we'd love to hear them because I'm going to be sharing them as well. And I know you said that you won't be tuning into my series for it because you want to be able to experience it for yourself. I get it. I get it. So please ignore any new videos I make of Borderlands 4 when I do the series, so that way you can just enjoy it at your own pace. And mind you, since I'm the only one who has a stipulation of doing it in parts, you get to enjoy it more than me because you get to enjoy it as long as you want because you're not doing videos or recording anything on it. So you get to enjoy it way more than me. And kill Katagawa Jr. Reese gives them the last part of the key in the vault's location. Inside it, the Vault Hunters defeat the Rampager, an alien beast held within it. The Calypso twins arrive, and Tyrene absorbs the Rampager's power, revealing their plan to absorb the power of the Vault monsters on their way to the Great Vault. Ava attempts to fight them, but is overpowered. Maya intervenes to save her, but Troy kills her by draining her life force and powers. And everything after that really painted a picture that you killed Maya, and then you had Ava argue about it. And that cemented Ava as one of the most hated characters for Borderlands 3 permanently, with potentially no hopes of redemption. But who knows, she may show up in Borderlands 4, and maybe they'll actually do a good job of making her a better character, but we don't know. As it stands right now, Ava is one of the worst characters of Borderlands, and worst written characters of Borderlands too. The Vault Hunters and Crimson Raiders head to the next vault on the swamp planet of Eden 6. Owned by the Jacobs family, where the COV are also invading. Wainwright Jacobs, heir to the Jacobs Corporation, agrees to help the Vault Hunters obtain the Eden Vault key if they rescue his lover Alistair Hammerlock. The Vault Hunters find Hammerlock, who reveals he was betrayed by his sister, Aurelia, who has sided with the Calypso twins and seized the Jacobs Corporation in exchange for handing them the Vault key. The Vault Hunters gather the 3 pieces of the Eden 6 Vault key and kill Aurelia. They open the vault and defeat its monster, the Grave Ward. Isn't it supposed to be Grave Warden? It's supposed to be Grave Warden. Or is it Grave Ward? Has it always been Grave Ward? Patricia Tannis then drains the Grave Ward's energy before Tyreen can absorb it. Enraged, the Calypsos kidnap Tannis and take her back to Pandora to publicly execute her. The Vault Hunters and Crimson Raiders return to Pandora to rescue Tannis. During the rescue, Tannis reveals that she also has siren powers inherited from Angel after her death, a fact both she and Lilith kept a secret. Tannis warns that the Calypso twins are preparing to open the Great Vault and drain the energy of the monster within it. The Vault Hunters assault the COV's main headquarters, but are too late to prevent Troy from activating the Vault's key, which is the entire moon of Elpis. The Vault Hunters fight and kill Troy, resulting in Ava inheriting the siren powers he had stolen from Maya. However, the Great Vault starts opening and Tyreen absorbs Troy's energy before escaping. The Vault Hunters are contacted by Typhon de Leon, the first Vault Hunter, who warns them that the Great Vault contains an interdimensional monster called the Destroyer, which can consume the entire universe. He summons the Vault Hunters to the Lost Iridian homeworld, Necrotafeo. At Necrotafeo, Typhon explains that the Great Vault isn't simply located on Pandora, but is actually the entire planet itself. The Iridians created it to act as a prison and sacrificed their entire civilization to capture the Destroyer, but left behind the machine they used in case the Destroyer escaped. As they gather the 4 vault keys needed to power the device, Tyreen reveals that Typhon is her and Troy's father. Typhon admits that he had to try to keep the twins with him on Necrotafeo to protect them, but they saw it as a prison, becoming bitter and power-hungry. Tyreen disables the machine before it can be used and mortally wounds Typhon before fleeing to Pandora. The Vault Hunters reach Tyreen just as she merges with the Destroyer. They defeat her, and Lilith regains her siren powers. However, Elpis still threatens to destroy Pandora as it continues to open the Great Vault. Lilith sacrifices herself to shut down Elpis, leaving a flaming Firehawk sign branded on the moon. During the credits, scenes depict the Vault Hunters, the Crimson Raiders, and their allies honoring and memorializing Lilith, and everyone looking at the Firehawk sigil on Elpis. So, now we get down to the development, which isn't going to be too long. I'll say my final pieces, and then everyone can see that we are officially caught up with the Borderlands story! Sorry, I had to stretch there. It's been, what, like maybe 45 minutes? It's been 2 hours! How has it been 2 hours already? Good lord, time flies when you're having fun talking. Development! Borderlands 3 was developed jointly by Gearbox's Texas and Quebec studios. Gearbox had finished Borderlands and its sequel consecutively, leaving the studio somewhat burned out on the franchise. To try to do something different, Gearbox shifted work onto Battleborn, with the blessing of 2K Games, as a means of refreshing themselves. Battleborn was not a major success, but Gearbox was not disheartened on this. According to art director Scott Kester, while developing Battleborn, they gained several ideas for how to take the next Borderlands game. That sounds like family with food. That sounds like family with food. All right, cool. I can go through the development, say my final pieces of the series as a whole, what I'm looking forward to most in Borderlands 4, and then I'm gonna eat. Borderlands. According to art director Scott Kester, while developing Battleborn, they gained several ideas of how to take the next Borderlands game. And many of the team, as soon as Battleborn was complete, started building out these ideas for Borderlands 3. Gearbox Quebec undertook developing Borderlands 3 as their first assignment and said that they were doing so without compulsory overtime. Good. Nothing worse than crunch. Because apparently, something happened. Something happened. Oh, something happened with the Skyblivion mod team where some of the people that were volunteering to help out have essentially quit because they're being encouraged to engage in crunch for the Skyblivion mod that they're working on. Mind you, it's still being worked on, but quite a few people have left it because of talks of crunch being put upon them or suggestions of crunch. So crunch is bad. Crunch is actually bad because you're trying to make people go overboard in order to make sure a game gets pushed out, but that doesn't mean that the game is going to be good just because you're making people stay longer in order to work on this, because that can make people suffer burnouts. Crunch culture in video game development is never good. It's never good. Because it can lower morale, it can lower effectiveness, and just lower the overall attitude within a workspace. And thus, people will not want to give their 100% if they're just going to be forced to just try and go overboard. It's like asking a retail employee, hey, you're going to be working overtime, but you're not getting paid for it. But we also need you to work twice as fast because we have one less person, so we all need to be working as fast as possible. So, no. The game was announced with a trailer at PAX East on the 28th of March in 2019. The trailer received mixed reviews by video game websites, some of which characterize it as too similar in appearance and content to previous entries in this series, such as Borderlands 2, which kinda isn't a bad thing considering how good Borderlands 2 actually was. You don't need to reinvent the wheel for the wheel to still roll. It just needs to be, tidied up every now and then. Maybe add something to it, but don't try to take it in a whole brand new direction. Because it may not result in it being like the big game that you want it to be. To help bridge the gap between Borderlands 2 and Tales from the Borderlands to Borderlands 3, Gearbox released new DLC for Borderlands 2, Commander Lilith, and The Fight for Sanctuary. We talked about this earlier. In June 2019, making it free for a limited time to current owners of Borderlands 2. Several voice actors reprised their roles, including Ashley Birch as Tiny Tina and Chris Hardwick as Vaughn from Tales from the Borderlands. The recasting of other voice actors caused some controversy. Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford quarreled on Twitter with the voice actors Troy Baker, who played Reese, and David Eddings, who was the original voice of Claptrap, about the reasons for which both were not retained to voice their former character again. Eddings said that he had been bullied and physically assaulted by his former boss, Pitchford. According to Baker, Gearbox had refused to want to deal with members from the voice actors union SAG-AFTRA. Had refused to want to deal with members from the voice actors union SAG-AFTRA. Baker and Eddings were replaced by Ray Chase as Reese and Jim Foronda as Claptrap. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that Ryomen Sukuna himself is the voice of Reese? Why didn't I look into this? Why didn't I look into this? I didn't even pay it much mind, but Ray Chase? Also, Ray Chase moves from being the voice of Reese to being the voice of Amon in Borderlands 4. We got a lot of prolific people doing the voices of the playable characters in Borderlands 4, such as Alejandro Saab, who many people know as Kagi. He is the voice of Rafa, if many of you don't automatically recognize his voice already. And then we got Kimberly Brooks, who has been the voice of Storm in many Marvel games recently. And then we have, what is her name? what is her name? Judy Alice something, who is the voice of Vex in Borderlands 4 as well. Lot of good voices as well. Uh, let's see. Ray Chase were Baker and Eddings were replaced by Ray Chase as Reese and Jim Ferranda as Claptrap. Ice-T voices a character called Balex, an artificial intelligence trapped in the body of a teddy bear. Penn and Teller provide their likeness for the game, Pain and Terror, with Penn Gillette also providing his voice work for the Pain character. The Heavy recorded an original song for the game titled Put It on the Line. In June 2019, Gearbox invited Trevor Eastman, a series fan with terminal cancer, to play a preview build of the game. They let him name a weapon, the Trevinator, that appears in the game. I have that in my bank, in my backpack, on pretty much almost all my characters, and in my bank space as well. Never getting rid of it. In August 2019, 2K Games and its parent company, Take-Two Interactive, sent private investigators to the home of a YouTuber, Submato. Take-Two said that he had let users access, for a fee, non-public gameplay videos of Borderlands 3, which he denied. 2K called its actions necessary to protect its trade secrets. In response, calls for a boycott of the game began trending on Twitter. But it didn't stop it. So, of course, we have the marketing and the release, retail versions, the deluxe edition, which I currently have, the super deluxe edition, which I did not get, ultimate edition, and a diamond loot chest collector's edition with all the stuff and all the trimmings. But yeah, downloadable content. The first content pack, Moxie's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot. The content features the players helping Moxie take back a casino that Handsome Jack stole from her prior to his death. The second content pack, Guns, Love, and Tentacles, The Marriage of Wainwright and Hammerlock, which is a Lovecraftian-themed DLC focusing on the characters Wainwright, Jacobs, and Sir Hammerlock, who are planning their wedding in the cult-controlled planet Xylorgos. The third content pack, Bounty of Blood, is a Western-styled DLC that also incorporates Japanese aesthetics. The fourth content pack, Psycho Krieg and the Fantastic... Gotta be saying this carefully. The Fantastic Fuster Clock, featuring the return of the character Krieg from Borderlands 2, was released on the 10th of September 2020. These 4 content packs were available as part of the game's first season pass, available for the game's release. A second season pass was announced for the game's second year to be available on the 10th of November 2020. The new pass includes 2 new content packs titled Designer's Cut and Director's Cut. Designer's Cut includes a new skill tree for each of the game's characters and features a new game mode titled Arms Race. Still have yet to actually have a successful arms race match playing that game, which is Borderlands' own take on the Battle Royale genre. Director's Cut introduces small story missions and features a raid boss encounter, in addition to a new menu section that lets players view concept art and behind-the-scenes videos. And then, of course, it has all the updates and everything, including events, limited time events, which are now permanent events, so now you can enjoy all of these, including Bloody Harvest, and Malawan Takedown, and Revenge of the Cartels. And then they added a little mini game that contributed to actual science research, which was called Borderlands Science. The game is designed to present puzzles formulated from DNA sequences from the medical studies from research into the human gut microbiome. If a player is able to achieve a minimum score for a given level, then this indicates that they have found a possible match that can be flagged to researchers for future study, since not all sequences will necessarily have such a possible match. Players are rewarded with special in-game skins and limited-time loot boosters for completing these puzzles. The results of the Borderlands Science Initiative from April 20th to April 2020 to October 2023 were published in April 2024, demonstrating that the crowdsourced approach was able to outperform state-of-the-art computational methods. Games can help science. In October 2020, Gearbox announced next-gen console support for the Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 platforms to come via a free update. This was planned to commence day and date on release of the new consoles respectively on the 10th of November for Xbox and 12th of November for PlayStation. This support promises to fully optimize and take advantage of their processing power. Alongside vertical two-player split screen, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 will display Borderlands 3 at up to 60 FPS and 4K resolution during single-player and online co-op, and it does, and it runs beautifully. And the next-gen consoles will support 3 and 4-player split screen for local multiplayer. Haven't tried that. No one else is touching my system. During November 2020 post-patch, it was discovered that Borderlands 3 can run up to 60 FPS and native 4K on the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and S if the resolution mode is enabled, but can also get up to 120 FPS if run in performance mode. If the I may have to test that someday. A June 2021 update introduced cross-platform play across all supported platforms, excluding the PlayStation systems, despite plans to support this. Gearbox said this was at the request of their publisher 2K. However, by April 2022, Gearbox affirmed that they will reintroduce crossplay with PlayStation support within a few months. And they did so. Now, this, mind you, the story may have been its weakest point, but that does not mean that Borderlands was a bad game by any degree. The gameplay was by far the best out of all the gameplays for Borderlands. Borderlands 2 had the best story. Borderlands 3 had the best gameplay. So while all of these, and funny enough, all of the Borderlands games are like 8s and 9s, except for the presequel, right? I don't think the presequel was rated all that high. No, that's Borderlands 2. No, it went to Borderlands 2. I need to go to Borderlands, the presequel. Borderlands. Where is it? I'll just put that over there. Yeah, pretty much the vast majority of the Borderlands games were received with like 8s and 9s. Now, let me see Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. How much was that one? Critical reception. And along the same lines, the Borderlands games have been consistent being 8s and 9s. They haven't fallen beneath that. Despite Wonderlands feeling a little bit less, even though it's cool to a degree, certain aspects of it I just didn't gel with overly. Yeah, some of it I just didn't gel with. But the Borderlands series as a whole has been pretty solid, including Tales of the Borderlands as well. Now, I don't know about new Tales of the Borderlands because I was not interested in anything that game had to do. Matter of fact, let me see. Something flew into my eye as soon as I was doing all this extra. Let's see. New Tales. New Tales from the Borderlands. Let me see the reception. Yeah, that's pretty much this is pretty much the only Borderlands property that got lower than an 8. That was lower on the list compared to all the other games. New Tales from the Borderlands was pretty much the weakest out of anything Borderlands related. But that's pretty much the history of Borderlands as a whole. Now, with Borderlands 4, they are introducing quite a lot of new things for the game as a whole, like an entire one planet map that is just completely open-ended, meaning no loading screens trying to go into new regions. We can physically travel there. A vastly massive skill tree for characters with different skills, and a whole switch up to how the manufacturers do weapons now, because now weapons can incorporate parts from different manufacturers onto one weapon. So a Jacob could have a part of a Torg, or a Tediore could have part of a Malawan, or a Ripper could have parts of an Order, or a Daedalus can have parts of a Jacobs. They can mix and match now, which means that the variations of types of guns we can get with the variations of parts now have made it so that the gun quality and gun quantity is going to be vastly superior than any other Borderlands games that we've had. So many quality of life improvements, including more traversal methods such as gliding and hovering and grappling onto different locations, or even grappling objects to throw at enemies, and also and new post game stuff that is going to be supported even after the game launches, like they did with Borderlands 3, but to a much grander degree. We have a whole entire roadmap of what to expect, so that's already amazing. And the story and the characters and the tone that they are setting for Borderlands 4 looks to be vastly better than what we got in Borderlands 3. That's what a lot of people are hoping, but I honestly feel like with what they're setting up, they're not going back to the overabundance of trying to be very humorous when we don't need to be. They're going for a more grounded, mature, even slightly darker tone to the story, which is what we need because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with humor, but at the same time, you don't want to do it so often that that's all that you see from the series. Because Claptrap was, he was, you love to hate him in Borderlands 2. In Borderlands 3, he was just plain annoying. There wasn't really any redeeming qualities to him whatsoever. There wasn't any endearing qualities to him either. In Borderlands 3, he was just plain annoying, and you hated interacting with him, or even hearing his voice in general. But it looks like they're going to be changing up how they do things for Borderlands 4 to make it better narratively wise, and also character wise, and also nature wise as well. And I can't wait to play Borderlands 4 when it drops this week. This week. Once I'm done with Tuesday, as usual, I take breaks on Wednesdays. The only thing that's standing in my way is Hunter x Hunter, and that is just on Thursday, and I don't mind that. I don't mind it because I love reading Hunter x Hunter for you guys right now. But after that, every game stream I have once I start Borderlands will be nothing but Borderlands until I roll credits, and even then we're going to have more sessions where I'm looking for stuff, farming stuff, getting stronger, doing any and everything I can for the game, and that's just for one character. There are 3 other sessions I will have that cover the other characters as well, and then I'll be doing those again when we get the other additional 2 DLC hunters we're going to be getting in the future, and I'm going to be covering all of the DLC that they drop for the game. All of it. Everything. I'm going to be covering everything for Borderlands 4, so I can't wait. So needless to say, seeing where this game has started, how it's improved graphically and mechanically, all the way up to where it is with Borderlands 3, and then seeing what they were doing with Borderlands 4. Mind you, I haven't been trying to look at anything new recently because I want to experience it for myself. I don't want to hear nothing. I want to experience it for myself. But given what they're doing in Borderlands 4, I feel like we could be seeing the same level of hype and quality and possible fun that we had with Borderlands 2 in terms of everything just feeling like everything just linked up just fine. Now, mind you, I'm saying this before the game even comes out, and I am indeed hyped for it. But I feel like Borderlands 4 may be the game that many of us wanted Borderlands 3 to be. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I wanted to cover with you guys today as we essentially... Oh, snap. Sorry. I forgot to put my face back in here. Sorry about that. I forgot that was still set from yesterday when I was reading Solo Leveling. My bad. But this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about the history of Borderlands and the games as a whole and how they improved throughout the series and how it got better and how some things may have faltered, but the series is still going strong, and Borderlands 4 looks to be like their best one yet. So I'm looking forward to it. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for me to go ahead and eat my food that's over there. That McAllister's ain't gonna eat itself. I'm done for today. I spent quite a bit of time talking about Borderlands. The next time I talk about Borderlands, we're playing the game. But I'm done. Hope y'all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. And because I know you're coming back anyway. Have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!